and the other is a supporting character. Okay.
It's a very
I'll say
sell.
Gandalf was a protagonist, but he's not the main protagonist. He's just one of the side
He's the mentor.
protagonists.
He plays the mentor role. Mentor slash. I mean, he's pretty ensemble in Hobbit, but
All right, we're live. Thanks for joining us. We wanted to get as many people involved. Yesterday, we tried to get through the video, but we said, you know what, this is not good. We're not helping each other. We're just sort of listening and stopping every second, and
he's it's like
And repeating ourselves as well.
yeah,
just like Palpatine is all the Sith. This guy is all the bad arguments.
everything. It's like, oh, we've heard that before, but there's no reference. There's no evidence. There's no.
The final boss of horrific argumentation.
Hard to say. So thankfully we got Southpaw and Evan together, and we're gonna finish this off in less than 3 hours, I hope. And hopefully it won't take too long. All right. So we're talking about Mary Sue and the Mary Sue trope and why it's a good thing. Why you just don't know how good Mary Sue is, whether you're writing fan fiction.
Oh, you're just being too lazy to make an argument.
Or
you're just saying
or you've been given hundreds of millions of dollars to make a bunch of money from movies, and that's your goal. Then why not use the Mary Sue? That's a great idea. So let's get into here. We're at 13 minutes and 29 seconds of Julz Chan's Movie Corner. Super Mighty Captain Force Mary Sue. Let's go.
Captain America, or even James Bond, I sense a double standard going on, dearies. Suddenly, a heroine is a Mary Sue because she's supposedly perfect, never struggles or suffers any losses, which is, of course, a stupidly wrong.
Yeah, this is if you haven't noticed by now, since you are new to this guy, he is from the school of this. If you say something in a mocking voice, it means it's dumb and untrue. He doesn't know that just because you say something in a mocking voice doesn't mean it's untrue.
Yeah, it's like the voice makes things more ridiculous, like the claims. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's saying that, like, if it's a man, like a Mary Sue's, or there are men who are like Mary Sue's, and we just don't realize it because we have a problem with women. I'm guessing that. Like,
you already know. You haven't even been here, and you didn't even know exactly what we covered in the first half of the video.
Pull this off, man. Everyone who says this will be like, Mary Sue's. There are men who are Mary Sue's. Like, yes, there are. It can happen both ways, man. We call them Gary Stews. You can call men a Mary Sue. It's just it's all about the character writing.
Well.
Has this guy never heard of Wesley Crusher?
I don't think he has given him that
Funny
distinction.
You mentioned that because he references a lot of other superheroes that are males, but doesn't bother to gauge how they're Mary Sue or why. And
he says that the Mary Sue is sexist because it came from a parody story that had a female protagonist who they called Mary Sue. You know, the Trekkie's Tale. He didn't even give the context of it was written by a woman.
He was specifically saying it was taking the piss out of women's fan fiction.
Yeah, but he didn't say that it was written by a woman. Yeah. So he just wanted to leave that in the air like a floating turd in the toilet, and this lets his audience think that, oh, a man must have written this.
Well, the original Mary Sue is original Mary Sue. Mary Sue is just the name of basically the parody of this trend in women written.
And it was like lonely housewives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's what it was at that time. Yeah,
they noticed that like every female protagonist of Star Trek fan fiction was perfect, had no flaws, and was pretty much completely unrelatable, but was basically supposed to be like the fantasy, essentially.
Pretty much.
And yeah, it's like I don't understand what his point was in trying to bring.
Well, his point is, did you know that 2 + 2 = 4? You guys are idiots. That's his argument. Just saying something in a mocking voice.
Yeah, but 2 and 2 don't equal anything because Mary Sue's don't exist. You know, because
4 doesn't exist. Okay, 4 just doesn't exist.
But if it does, it's awesome. That's his argument.
But 4 does exist. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic number.
It's
I was about to say, if he was saying just there, if he was just saying there like Superman and Captain America are Mary Sue's, that's not true. Like, was that what he was saying about Bond?
He's saying he was people calling these characters Mary Sue's.
I'm sure. Again, I've said this before with Vosh's video a few months back that I'm sure there's one comic book or several actually of Superman being a Mary Sue because there's been so many writers over the decades that there's one company. Yep, he does everything great. He has superpowers that come out of nowhere. Everyone loves him, etc., etc. We could probably find a comic like that. So there's probably an argument to be made, but he doesn't make that argument. He doesn't even show us which comic, what version. He doesn't point to anything. He just shows a picture of Superman. You're like, and what does that mean? So not very helpful with the argumentation. Anyway, just got a super chat from Mr. Andrew Clark. Thank you, sir. Heads up, keep in mind Wesley Crusher and DM's GF. Yes, those are the two arguments we always make when it comes to Mary Sue's. So
depending on the writer, Batman can also be written as a Mary Sue. Like, because that whole excuse because he can do anything, you know?
No, Batman can do anything.
No, he can't.
Yes, he can.
No, he can't. Not in the
Batman.
good Batman. No.
Batman can do anything. No, he can do anything.
Fuck you.
No, it's just not true. He can do everything. He is God.
Okay. He's a Mary Sue then.
You know, I'll give you that. Is it really to be? If you're a god, are you really Mary?
well, there is the God
Because your
suit.
powers are.
So yeah, it's technically possible to be a Mary Sue.
There you go. Batman's a god Sue. There you go.
Okay, that's glad we established that, guys. Okay, let's keep going. Actually, let's read this thing. How odd how a dude can be uber powerful, hyper competent, and lack development, yet hardly anyone says anything, especially if he's white and clearly straight. Again, Wesley Crusher. It's not very common with males, but these are the things that happen to them. Whether fan fiction.
Thing is,
Mission
when
Impossible too.
it comes to male characters who have these traits, they're just often just kind of forgotten about because they're not very, the stories they're a part of become forgotten.
Also,
And they're less
Ethan Hunt.
popular.
Also, Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible 2. Like, throughout the whole series. I mean, the second movie.
Is it specific
Oh, yeah,
to the
he's
second
doing
movie
it.
or the rest of the series?
Just the second movie.
Okay.
He's doing
movie, I'd
insane
say-
things throughout that entire film, and he's winning at everything. He's not the same Ethan Hunt from the rest of the.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's Impossible. He's kind of like he's a regular spy. You can kind of believe that he can lose and possibly fail an objective. Mission Impossible. He's basically like a poor man's American version of James Bond, essentially, but not even as well written as Bond at his best, or Bond at his worst, rather. And then Mission Impossible 3 comes along and kind of like, once again, Ethan's kind of inconsistent from how his movie, but this time it's for the better, and then they maintain that for the rest of the series, and it's way better that we have the Ethan Hunt from Impossible movies than the one that we had in MI2. So
it is possible.
you know what? Actually, you know what? Let me. Robin John Blake from The Dark Knight Rises, I would argue, is a Gary Stu.
Oh yeah, they don't explain anything about him. I rewatched that movie recently. Like, he is so good at everything. He knows where to be at certain places and how to do certain things. It's ridiculous how they wrote his character so mysteriously, and obviously it was for the sake of having the Robin twist at the end, but like they sacrificed knowing anything about him.
Yeah, he's into the final movie of this trilogy. He just comes up out of nowhere, basically. I mean, he's just a cop. He's just a regular cop, but he's the one that out that Bruce Wayne is Batman from a look on his face. And then there's the fact that he's given, like, where Gordon is when Gordon gets captured by Bane and like escapes and everything, and where he is. And there's an earlier scene that shows him like finding a body over where like he finds Gordon. It's really strange how he like makes that connection that Gordon must have been in that exact drain.
My issue with that isn't that he went to that drain. I think he had reason to go there based on what was set up. My trouble is that it is that drain. It's like It doesn't make sense that it goes at that specific one.
Yeah, that's my exact problem too. And then it's all he's the one that Bruce Wayne decides is going to inherit. Like, he's going to take up the Batman mantle. It's like, but you don't have the training. training of a regular cop. Batman is more than just a cop wearing a special suit.
He's not even a cop.
Well, cop at that point anymore in the series, but he has the training of a cop because he became.
Oh, no, I was saying Batman's not even a cop, so it's.
Oh,
Yeah, he was talking about Blake.
All right, he's even Mike cutting outside.
I'm just talking about like training wise. Batman has less than the average police officer, and yet an average police officer becomes Batman at the end, and I have a huge issue with that in general.
One of my favorite scenes with his character, it was so hilarious when I watched it. There's this scene where Bruce goes outside and they're towing his Lamborghini, and somehow and for no reason, Blake is there. He just pops up and he's like, "Looks like you need a ride, huh?" Mm-hmm. It's like, how the hell did you get here? Why are you here? It's just, his character is so weird in that movie.
Hey, Literature Devil, there's a guy in chat saying that last stream you were praising The Dark Knight Rises as good writing.
I don't think I was praising Dark Knight Rises specifically. I said I think I like the Nolan trilogy like all as a whole.
Oh,
I don't think I said it was even good writing.
I think you referenced something within The Dark Knight Rises. You referenced something within it.
I'm open to the idea that there is something in The Dark Knight Rises that's well written when like put in isolation.
I personally enjoyed all three movies. I think that's what I said. Which I've fully admitted that just because I like something doesn't mean it's actually well constructed.
I think,
but I think that's what it is. I'm not sure what exactly I said, but
I think The Dark Knight,
they liked it. I liked all three movies.
I think that The Dark Knight has like some issues, but is overall solid. The Dark Knight Rises is fucking garbage, though. So if we were to like,
The Dark Knight Rises kind of suffered from. I've seen this happen too with what's his name, Stephen Moffat. It's at Moffat or whatever. It's an issue of the creator getting too egotistical and trying to be too clever or too brilliant for their own good.
Oh yeah,
you see that with the later half of Matt Smith's run, and you see that with The Dark Knight Rises. It wasn't as good as The Dark Knight, but I liked all three films altogether.
I thought
I would still take The Dark Knight Rises over Batman versus Superman and Justice League.
Oh, any day, yeah.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because that movie is at least enjoyable. And it at least has Batman acting as Batman in some way, rather than Batman just murdering people.
I still love the part where he just decides to go in and confront Bane. He's like, "Hey, I'm just going to take Catwoman into the sewers and I'm going to single-handedly take down Bane by myself." like Gordon described it as an underground army, and he's like, "I'm going down there." And it's like exactly what you'd imagine happens. I'm like, Batman, what was your plan?
Oh, that's right.
He was just trying to show off the Catwoman.
The reason why I brought up Dark Knight Rises is because I brought up the fact that Julz Chan said that Batman was a Mary Sue, and I said no, he wasn't. And I brought up the Dark Knight Rises portrayal of Bruce Wayne and how he was beaten and broken, and everything he was taken away from him. He lost pretty much everything. Lost his city, lost his identity as Batman, and he lost his physical nature. He broke his back, and then he wasn't given anything. He built himself back up, and he had to make that impossible climb out of what I think is a Lazarus Pit prison. Sure. That's why I brought it up. Okay.
Okay, so like I don't think that Batman is a Mary Sue in Dark Knight Rises outside of like teleportation,
back
stuff
healing
that
powers.
doing,
Yeah, that's kind of amazing.
He's not a Mary Sue in the Dark Knight either. Like the thing with that, like he can't save Rachel inside of that movie. He's got between choices with the Joker. Like I don't think he's a Mary Sue in any of the movies. But yeah,
but I mean, be charitable to this Julz Chan fellow. The Nolan movies aren't the only Batman movies in existence, and they're Batman could be in a comic or a game depending on the writer or
absolutely. But the thing about Julz Chan is that he doesn't give any specific examples. He just says Batman's a Mary Sue. Batman in general.
No references.
No
specific. No specific. That's the problem when referring to Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman as a Mary Sue. You have to talk about specific stories and media, because the Dark Knight trilogy is very different to the Arkham games, which is very different to the animated series.
Right. There's also like, you know,
and
there's
all the comics as well.
well, there's multiple Batman, and there's only one version of Star Wars. Two, if you're counting the old extended universe. So I'd say that you could maybe reboot Star Wars and then redo the sequel trilogy, and this time make Rey into not a. Okay, yeah, this version of Rey is not a Mary Sue. You could start making Star Wars tie-in comics that take place after Rise of Skywalker, where Sue, which would be kind of inconsistent, like how is she losing now and everything, but at the same time it could be like, okay, you know, you're not making her into a Mary Sue. There's actually here. The problem is they're not going to make Star Wars fixed. Yeah, that's the thing is Ethan Hunt was made into a Mary Sue in Mission Impossible 2 in the next movie and every movie after that. James Bond can be made into a Mary Sue and then can in the next movie he can not be a Mary Sue. It's like this guy might be trying to point out that maybe that doesn't get as many complaints, which I'm not sure about. But at least for me, by the same standard to even male characters like James Bond, Ethan Hunt, Batman, etc.
Unfortunately,
So,
the James Bond films are mostly episodic in nature, so that it doesn't really connect to previous ones, whether you're the same actor in the same series. So compare that to doing Episode 9, where it's like, okay, now suddenly Rey has to train. Like, why is she? What is she training for? Like,
that's third movie in her series. Now she's training,
and you're like, what is she trying to do?
The only thing she ever struggled with was like learning how to talk to Force Ghosts, which is a very strange thing to struggle with, especially since no one we've seen needed any kind of training to be able to see the ghost.
It's like asking someone to learn paper mache when they're in a war. It's like it's completely unrelated to what's going on. Like, okay, yeah, she has a problem.
Not to mention
tying her shoes. Like, wow.
The one time, not to mention that when she trains, that's the time when Kylo beats her. It's really strange. Like Kylo technically wins the Death Star duel until the plot bails Rey out and lets her win, you know? But had the plot not bailed her out there, falling out to Kylo, I think that Kylo would have won that duel.
Multiple parts in the story where so it's specifically set up at the beginning that she can't talk to the ghosts. Then all of a sudden, for absolutely no reason whatsoever, the ghosts just randomly talk to her at the end. And, you know, with the lightning's going up and you hear all the Jedi like, Rey, rise, Rey, bring the balance to the Force, blah, 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 blah.
Without like her actually needing to work on that throughout the movie because there's too many fucking. There's like she doesn't. It's not like she can go to a character that can help her achieve that sort of inner peace or whatever she needs. Like in Kung Fu Panda 2, Poe gets his ass handed to him, and then he like kind of washes up on this bank, and this soothsayer, a shaman woman, goat, whatever. Helps him achieve inner peace. You know, it's like he has a character helping him do like work his way through this. Character actually help her, like guide her into being able to reach these Force ghosts. It's really strange.
It's so funny, but I was thinking about the Kung Fu Panda movies the other day, and I'm like, they're a very good example of how to do what a lot of people feel Rey represents inside of the Star Wars movies, where it's the idea that everyone can be special. Like that's kind of the theme or the overall message of the first Kung Fu Panda is that there is no secret ingredient.
Yeah, very good job showing the story of how anyone can be a hero.
Again, Ratatouille is also a good example. Like Ratatouille is a bit more on the nose, where it's like, oh, not everyone can be a great chef, but a great chef can come from anywhere.
Yeah, it's like there's so many examples of how to do the whole Rey type thing where anyone can be special, but it's like the point is, man, you're supposed to build the characters up, like you know,
the anyone can be special thing. The anyone can be special thing was more made up by the fans than it was made up by the the actual creators themselves. The closest you can find is some random kid who randomly has the Force, or Rey not having any parents, but that's not strong enough to be a theme.
Exactly. Not even strong enough to be a motif.
I had an argument with the guy on one time where he tried to say that the Kung Fu Panda series didn't make sense because Tai Lung was this and Poe was able to defeat Tai Lung, which implies that Poe should be able to defeat Tigress, but then Tigress defeats Poe in Kung Fu Panda 2. I was thinking about it, I was like, well, this is the same guy argues that the prequel trilogy is actually like strongly written, and then I realized, wait a minute, Dooku defeats Obi-Wan twice, basically, and then Anakin defeats Dooku, which should mean that Anakin should defeat Obi-Wan, but
it's
Obi-Wan
not always quite as simple as power level.
Yeah, it's like there's also this rock paper
DBZ
scissors
mentality
dynamic going, you know? Yeah,
the DBZ mentality doesn't work for every series. It just works in DBZ usually. I mean, it's not Poe. The Kung Fu Panda series is not about power levels. It's about mentality.
Right.
It's about people having different powers and different techniques and all that stuff.
Yeah, so in theory, you can have someone defeat someone and then be defeated by someone who they beat.
and the reason why he defeats Tigress but can't defeat Poe is because the nerve attack thing that he uses on all the Furious Five can't work on Poe because his belly fat like bounces.
He even tries it.
Hilarious.
It just tickles him. It just tickles him.
Yeah, tries doing it multiple times. It's both a logical it's very funny.
Something I think they showed that Tai Lung and Tigress were pretty much on the same level. Is that Tai Lung knew his wisdom and his knowledge on techniques far outpaced hers.
Yeah.
And those movies are really good. I rewatched some clips from them, and I need to rewatch them, man. I love the first Kung Fu.
Oh, they're awesome.
I think the third one's kind of weird, but the first two are really good. All the specials they have are really good.
I mean,
I'll
I like
be
the
honest,
third one.
not really.
I think the third one, it's still overall it's worth watching when I rewatch the series.
All right, let's keep going, guys. We got a lot to go through.
Wrong assumption. If that was the only way to enjoy stories, if that was the only way to find characters engaging, just because they were miserable as the people who like to use the term Mary Sue and about as sad as Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, yes, I went there, we wouldn't have stories like Sword Art Online, Devil's a Part-Timer, 7 Deadly Sins, One Punch Man, and Mob Psycho 100, which have...
This is a really
Wasn't the
bad...
thing about one?
Hold on, you can't give us this much
the whole
nonsense.
thing
at
about
once.
One Punch Man,
First,
like the fact that he is so powerful, and that's kind of like a parody of like what if someone really was that powerful.
Yeah, we're talking about entire genres of stories here that are based around the concept of you going to another world or you've achieved a level, and that's the explanation given to the audience saying, hey, this is how he got there. Now they have to deal with whatever is the actual psychological condition he's in, or in the case of a game, whatever stats they have. There's an explanation for that. We don't have that.
The thing is, the way I best described it when talking to someone in the comments was that it's forming the world. So at first, when you're creating the story, you have to form the world, and once that world is set and molded, it cannot be changed. But sometimes when making a story, the world can be too molded towards that character, or they can just end up straight up bending the world. And just because, but it's different if at the beginning you're setting your character as someone who is this powerful, but instead if you're looking at someone like Rey, you're starting off on a story which it shouldn't be able to happen. You shouldn't be able to have someone who is this powerful without any training. It's already on a set area which cannot be changed.
can I just say that I would be okay with Rey if she was like, I don't know, 35 years old, not 19, and there was like an implied with training. Like, I wouldn't give a shit if she was as powerful as she was, if she was at least a little older. And
You mean
just
with
have her
everything
be the
that's set up
student.
before, I think you do a little more than just having her be on the desert planet, though, right? Like,
Just have her be a student of Luke Skywalker at the very beginning, and that way you've solved.
she is like
all
Luke
of the
Skywalker's
problems.
best student, you know?
ideally, man, that's the quickest solution.
And then that'll help the
Give
project
her
out
some
as
stuff.
well.
You literally have the first movie, Force Awakens, open without like the First Order having risen to, or Luke Skywalker's Jedi Order is destroyed or everything, and you introduce Luke going somewhere, and he has his hand not second hand, like his maybe his best
Is
student,
right hand man?
right hand woman rather, his best student, whatever you want. Like it's like the Mace Windu to his Yoda, right? you have someone who in charge of his Jedi Order, and it's Rey, and she's like 35 years old or 40 or whatever, and like she's as powerful as Mace, pretty fucking powerful. You could do that, and we would be perfectly fine with it.
Sounds like the plot of KOTOR 2, where you were the exile to Revan, and you were seconding, you like his main general, and she has to remember who she is and what happened, etc.
Yeah. But of course, we were all ignoring the fact that this would require J.J. Abrams to actually put some thought into some of his stories.
Yeah. Also, all I want to say for this part here is I don't know any of these animes. I don't watch anime. I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. It doesn't even count as anime. And also, I don't even like Avatar anymore. So there's that.
How can you not like Avatar?
Right? I can't wait to get crucified over that. I can't wait for people to...
I will be there with the pitchforks.
Yep. But I will say, even I know and it's supposed to be a parody of Mary Sue's. It's supposed to deconstruct it. There was like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode where some guy spell to make him into an in-universe Mary Sue, which they figure out. You know? It's like you can totally satirize, deconstruct the archetype as long as it's sort of self-aware, you know? It's like you can have plot holes in your story if you're self-aware about it, like one that I think is so fucking hilarious. So that's all I really have to say about that.
Let's keep going. We got to get through this. We're going to be here a while. We're having good conversations. That's
protagonist who could chop the heads off demon overlords and gods with ease, and despite varying degrees of quality, they are still very popular. And I can hear you otaku edgelords crying in the background admit it. Now, despite me saying this term is flimsy and nebulous and vague, to the point where I feel like talking about the existence.
See, you don't. These are the Mary Sue doesn't exist. You all just hate women. Okay, that's just that's the crux of his argument so far.
Pretty much.
Also, just because Southpaw and Evan don't know, yes, he's going to play the Slaughtering Grounds theme throughout this entire video, and yes, it does get extremely tiring.
Just the same music over and over again?
Yep, it's the dun 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 and over and over and over.
Don't use repetitive music, man.
You guys all love these male powerful characters. But you call Rey and Captain Marvel Mary Sue's because they're women. You're all sexist misogynists.
Clearly.
You need to educate yourselves. Yeah, and you need to educate yourselves.
I don't know anime, but someone in the chat said most of the animes he's mentioned, the protagonist deals with mental or social issues instead of their power level.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've seen One Punch Man season 1, and that's exactly what the entire series is about. It's about Saitama. He can always defeat every enemy he has with one punch, and they generate conflict in the stories through like his relationship with Genos and a bunch of other characters. And the point is, like,
he hates the fact that he's so powerful. He hates it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's a major conflict.
It's boring for him. That's the point. It's funny because he's like, he wants a fight and he never gets it because he always wins quickly, and it annoys him. And it's like,
from the first episode, he says that he gained a lot of power, like unstoppable power. He's pretty much invincible now, but he's lost a big part of himself. He lost a lot of his humanity when that power came to him.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes the show kind of interesting, is when you have characters like Genos and Speed of Sound Sonic, who like represent interesting like additions to the story, and the way that they interact with Saitama is it makes the story engaging. It's not him alone, and like he's a Mary Sue, but that's specifically written to be that way because it's trying to satirize a lot of cliches and tropes with anime to try to subvert them. So
that's the beauty.
Yeah, everyone loves Moomin Rider. Like everyone they like Saitama, but everyone also loves Moomin Rider.
Yeah, I was about to say that's the moment in the show that everyone loves. That's like what people say is the best scene in the show, is this scene where a character with like no powers is fighting like this super powerful enemy.
It's invincible,
so satisfying
or something.
It's the no powers. That's the beautiful thing about that. I always say this a lot, whereas side characters are always shards or focused areas of the main character or the antagonist. And Moomin Rider is great because he has the same mentality as Saitama. He wants to be a hero. He doesn't care. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't care how strong he is. He doesn't care what the problem is. He just wants to do it. Just with Saitama. Now, Saitama has been around there for so long that he's become a god. And this guy, he's just a dude with a bike, really. That's all he is. And he'll just take on.
Really all he is.
Yeah. And it's beautiful.
People say he's Captain America without the serum, and it's like that's exactly who he is.
Exactly. It's such a beautiful aspect because he is a hero at purely as much as he can get to be a hero at heart.
The most heroic character in the series.
He will throw himself at anything, knowing he's nobody, and he'll get beaten up. I'm surprised he's still alive, but
I thought he died actually. And then he found out he's alive in the hospital or something.
Right. But that's the beautiful aspect of the story because it is a parody, and even when you're in this world, okay, this is not real. There's no way this could be thing. But then you look at these characters saying, oh, this is a certain personality of what it means to be a villain, or a monster, or a hero, and you get to explore that, knowing it's a parody, and you can be dramatic and you can be serious, even though you have this whole joke of a story. Whereas you take a serious movie, like a space opera, and things just start happening out of the blue, and you're like, okay, I can't wrap my brain around all this random stuff. You can't just narrow it down to some supernatural power causing everything. It doesn't make any sense, at least at the rate that we are shown. So the manifestation of abilities that are supernatural or fantastical or science fictional have to be grounded in the lore of the world. And with Saitama, it's like, yep, we have no idea. We have no clue how he became. He doesn't even know how powerful he is, but that's not the story. That's not the focus. The focus is his scenario and all the people around that scenario who apparently have monsters coming out of the woodwork every day. And all these cities are being destroyed. And Saitama is trying to live his life, trying to get by. Beautiful stuff when you have a genre telling you, hey, this is a parody. Oh, okay. Thank you, writer. As opposed to...
No, he's just you just hate women. If you didn't hate women, then you just call him Mary Sue.
It's almost like there's nuance to these types of conversations, and there's a lot of
context. Yeah,
that's
kind of Joel Chan's modus operandi. He gets rid of all the context, so his argument can even remotely work.
Can I also just try to compare how can Luke and Rey fare against Palpatine? Let's see here. Luke gets tortured by Palpatine with Force lightning, cannot defend himself, relies on Anakin. When he kills Emperor Palpatine, at least, or so we thought, by throwing him down that shaft, okay? Palpatine's lightning kills. Then Rey deflects Palpatine's lightning back at him without anyone's help, okay? They literally tossed Kylo into a hole, do jack all against Palpatine, and so that Rey could single-handedly defeat him. And then when that supposedly kills her, guess what? Kylo crawls out of nowhere to force heal her, which is like, that is the reason why they introduced force healing into this movie. They have her force heal the snake, then she force heal, and that, I guess, contributes to him becoming good again. But like the ultimate purpose that Kylo serves in the story after turning good, like okay, who cares about them? He does nothing against Palpatine. And then he force heals Rey. That was his purpose. Kylo Ren turned to the light side so that his death temporary. You compare how Rey fares against Palpatine to both Luke and Anakin, and it's clear that there was a bias for this character. They wanted to write their strong female character. They didn't want to actually have her pay any consequences for single-handedly defeating the antagonist. She fares way better than in both regards. It's bullshit.
As well as that, there's a random like shockwave that randomly comes out of anywhere. So she pulls out the lightsaber to deflect, and then she deflects with the other one, and then she does it a little bit harder. It starts disintegrating him. Then out of nowhere, the shockwave just kind of appears, and like the shockwave doesn't come from anything. It just magically appears and destroys everything, leaving Rey completely fine.
I think we're straying from the conversation, but let's keep going.
By the way,
evil in the universe.
By the way, I'm sorry. Am I having mic issues
here? Yeah, you keep cutting out. Still. But again, the conversations that we have that are off topic from the video are usually a lot more entertaining
I was
than
about
the
to say
video.
some other conversations that I guarantee they're all going to stem from points that aren't even being made. So it's just like, what's the point?
Well, I'm not going to look at chat fucking devolve into complaints about my mic issue. I'm just going to go ahead and just...
There's literally nothing you can do about it. So just streaming mic issues isn't going to fix anything.
Yeah, guys, this is related to my ISP to do with my mic. I don't know how many fucking times I have to say this. I understand that I keep cutting out, but it's not the mic. It's the ISP. I will change my ISP to go ahead and go. I'll sit out the re-streams until I can get my internet upgraded. Smudboy, thank you for inviting me.
No, you don't have to go.
Wait, no, yeah, you don't have to go, man. Seriously.
No, I don't want to ruin the stream with my mic issues.
No, you don't.
No, dude. Seriously, just stay.
Yeah, you're fine.
No,
we can hear you.
You
We can
need to
understand.
go, Southpaw.
I understand. I just don't want to ruin the stream for anyone else.
You're not ruining the stream for anyone, as far as I'm aware. I think people are just trying to make advice, like saying, "Oh, look, can you fix it?" But I don't think they realize that there's literally nothing you can do or anyone else can do.
No, man. The latest EFAP that I was on, where people were complaining that they couldn't watch it because of the microphonetisms, and I don't want that to affect the stream. And I said I wouldn't go back on. I had the ISP fixed, so it's fine. It's fine. I'll try to get that fixed as soon as possible. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, I guess I'll see you around, man.
All right. Well, thanks for dropping in. Oh, we just lost him, but that's kind of sad. Okay. Well, thank you, sir, for popping in.
That kind of made me a little bit stressed.
Damn. Jeez.
Okay. Well, let's
No, I was just saying, someone in the chat. It's got nothing to do with mic sensitivity. As far as we're aware, it's completely internet based.
Yeah, I was about to say this. I was the one who had mic problems, for the love of God. Like, I was the one who was echoing. Like, it's not the mic and it's not the audio. It's like, we can friggin' understand him, man. It's just he's cutting out a little bit. It's all right, man. It's just troubles.
People had the same issue with me. I remember in some of the earlier streams I was on, people were complaining about my mic in the comments. I was like, "There's nothing." Oh, he's back.
Hey, man.
Hey, I'm gonna try using push to talk. Is this better?
That's a lot better.
We don't know.
Oh, okay then. All right, so I'll just cool.
Okay. Well, welcome back, Southpaw.
Don't say anything. No one says
Seriously, man. It's all good. Yeah, don't worry about them. There's no need. It's all right.
All right, let's keep going.
Yeah, let's press on.
The negative effects of late-stage capitalism would be so much easier than this. I do see...
All right, this is another common pattern of these people. They have to bring up capitalism.
Capitalism is evil, of course.
I guess politics brought into the conversation.
Then they should go to Russia and
sex
China.
and politics. Like, why is this brought into the conversation?
Every single person has a problem with men, sexism, racism, capitalism, America.
Mary Sue, so capitalism, right? So, really? Where does capitalism fit in with the conversation on Mary Sue? This is a writing technique or a label you used to put on badly written characters. Suddenly, we're talking about capitalism. Why?
Capitalism.
Yeah,
bad.
I don't understand how what capitalism has anything to do with writers making characters into Mary Sue.
The thing is, with a lot of the criticisms I hear of capitalism are mainly things you can apply to corporatism rather than the idea of capitalism.
Pretty much, and it usually happens because people like Ray, and no one's buying Ray. Like, no one is purchasing stuff with Ray in it, and so they hate capitalism because no one's buying their Star Wars goddess. Therefore, capitalism is evil. But still pay for your ticket to go watch the movies.
Capitalism would be so much easier than this. I do see a sort of common criticism with the term, but it's not even a criticism in regards to character design. So this term is still shit, rather it's a story problem. The criticism/claim being that a character goes unchallenged by the plot and therefore it's uninteresting and therefore they're considered a Mary Sue.
How is Katniss Everdeen considered a Mary Sue?
I was about to say,
I've never heard any of that. I've never heard anyone called Katniss Everdeen.
Yeah, this
She's a
problem
woman,
that I
so
have
of
with
course.
Katniss Everdeen's writing, but she's not a Mary Sue. She's very much challenged, and she screws up.
If they have,
I
then it's not. I have never seen a huge wave like with Ray or anything like that. That would call her Mary Sue. Maybe some people obviously probably have. There's never been this huge
would
wave or outcry or
Yeah, there's
backlash.
obviously the extremes, because obviously you're always going to get extremes, unfortunately. But I don't think that's like what a lot of people believe.
I would have imagined that Mockingjay would have proven single-handedly that she's not a Mary Sue. It's not like she's down the Capitol single-handedly or anything. She actually has a very passive role in that book. Not to mention like all of the psychological issues that she has as a result of the first Hunger Games that she goes through.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I actually really like the movie Catching Fire. I think that's a lot better adaptation of the book. And it's like inside of that movie, like she gets brought into the games like against her will. It's something that's like conspired against her. She's forced to try to go along and like appease some of the people inside of the district to try like die down the war. Like she's used inside of those movies, and a lot of like stuff influences the people that she loves. Like Gale it's like flogged inside of the streets. It's like she's not a Mary Sue. Like I'd hear out an argument against it, but like I doubt this guy's going to present that.
This is just a picture on the screen. He didn't even mention the series, and I think he might be confusing the term challenge with conflict. I'm not entirely sure. So
yeah, I was about to say, if you're going to have visual aids, like you should use them to try to like like either provide something which is like matching your words, or to use them as examples. I think what I've been seeing so far is he's just throwing stuff on screen, and it's like it's almost like it's inherently this way. It's like
That's
that's
whole.
If he's
That was
throwing
the
up
entire first part of his video. It's just throwing things on screen and just a shotgun of accusations with nothing to back them up.
an argument.
A picture of Katniss Everdeen on screen as he's talking about Mary Sue's, all I'm left to assume is he thinks that Katniss Everdeen would qualify as we would think that she's a Mary Sue.
The same thing happened before on the last stream, where he had a picture of Kriya on the screen when mentioning self-insert characters or everyone characters.
that was confusing as hell. We sat there for a good minute going, what the hell is he talking about?
Because he didn't
Like, we were
explain
trying to
why.
work
He
it out.
didn't bring her up at all. He just showed her on screen, and as an implication that Kriya is a self-insert Mary Sue, and
then
just let it hang there.
And then
Nothing said
started
about
mentioning like Luke Skywalker, Rey, and all these other characters. It's like, yeah, but you have put Kriya on screen. We're wondering why.
I mean,
Another-
I've used like gaming footage in my videos in the past, and I'm trying to stray away from that in general, just because I think it is really late. Even though it makes editing a lot easier, and I can get videos out much more quickly. I do think that when you're using a minimal amount and focusing instead on just using appropriate footage to accompany what you're saying, it's a lot more entertaining. But
Yeah, there's also just take it from me personally. You do need some kind of easy way of making your video to make it so you can have a faster. I guess, don't want to say production line, but I guess that's the best word I can use right now. Work pipeline. Because when it came through my videos, it took me like a couple of hours to render because of I think it was mainly because I was using a hard drive at the time, but I've now switched to SSD. It's much faster. So you've got to try and make your workload fast enough to be able to work properly. So I can understand that, and I don't really have that big a problem with people using gameplay in the background of their videos.
Fair enough. Someone in the chat, by the way, pointed out that ER addressed Katniss instead of his Last Jedi video, and he said that her archery skills came from hunting for her family. That's something that's established in both the books and the movies. So
given that,
yeah, I don't-
that as her archery skills, then, and I would consider that strong writing.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, I have problems with the way Katniss is written in both the books and the movies, but like I think that there's a lot of strong writing backing her. I don't think she's necessarily a bad character, and she's certainly not a Mary Sue, but maybe he'll
Yeah,
elaborate
Phoenix-
on his
Struggles. I mean,
Phoenix,
she
Flame
really
Knight.
suffers in
That's
the first,
exactly
even
what-
from the first book. She really suffers.
It just Phoenix Flame Knight mentions that you need B-roll footage, which allows for faster editing, and yeah, that's what I was talking about.
All right, let's keep going.
This writer has made the mistake of dropping a character who is overly competent or too well equipped in an environment that is not balanced around that character. The world, the story the writer has built is not able to handle the character that they have chosen. Again, like with Tommy Oliver, it's not a problem with the character, it's a problem with the story. Okay, I assume a lot of people here have...
What do you mean it's not a problem with the character, it's a problem with the story?
It's both. It has to be
Storytelling-
even if he's... Well, technically, if we want to get really technical, the character in, say, a Batman comic is a different character in each line of a comic. So it's still going to be a problem with the character if in a specific comic he's written in a certain way. But that's
a good point, because one thing he's really doing here is that he's putting forth Batman and Superman, both of which, and Wonder Woman, all three of which are superheroes with decades of lore and stories behind them, with several different writers, a whole myriad of different writers and artists, and you can't really just put forth Batman and say he's a Mary Sue without giving us a specific example of what you're talking about. What version of Batman? From where? A video game? An old comic book?
It's much easier to say Ray specifically, because Ray's not in any kind... there's only one version of Ray.
There's only one version of Ray.
Oh, like a billion.
Apparently, the Green Power Ranger counts as well, which
he went on a long tirade
Power Ranger lore.
We went on a long tirade about the Green Power Ranger, but he didn't put forth any like substantive examples. He just said, "Oh, he gets favoritism, and he gets super special powers," but he didn't put any examples of where his so-called favoritism breaks the story or breaks the established lore or canon or the rules of the universe in any way.
Play D&D, or are at least familiar with the concept of D&D. Okay, so you have your quest set up, the story and adventure in which you want...
Okay, I'm just going to point out before he explains anything, D&D is not exactly known for well-written storytelling. It's just a bit of fun people role-play and just play in any... It's random structure. Like, it's pretty much anything can happen. Like, you could have someone shit on the ground out of nowhere, and doing that in an actual story wouldn't work as good storytelling.
Yes, there's no structure to D&D. The DM might construct a story-like campaign, but the actual adventure...
That's more just guiding lines.
Pretty much like a road you travel down, but anything can happen on that road. And you can do all sorts of ridiculous things that don't make any sense, all for the sake of having fun. Not really trying to tell a story to someone else.
Well, now he's attacking setting as opposed to the characterization, which is fine, but you have to show us how that works and why it only works this way and not in reference to an actual bad character. So I don't know what he's getting.
You can say the same thing for all of Julz Chan's arguments. You have to show us why. Because give us an example as to why. Give us an example as to why your argument makes sense. Why is Batman a Mary Sue? Why is the Green Ranger specifically a Mary Sue? Give us examples of when his characterization or the so-called favoritism you say he has breaks the story or breaks the established lore or the rules of the established universe.
Yeah,
another thing is that I struggle to find a good adaptation of a D&D campaign into a story. In fact, lots of them are really they're known for being absolute dog shit.
They're designed to be a game, exactly. They're not designed for a linear story.
It's a weird argument. I'm like, if I ever make a video on Mary Sue's, which I would like to sometime, but like if I do, I'd probably just like use one or two examples. Like if you're gonna do something like this, talking about Mary Sue's, like just use one or two examples. Like however many examples you want to use, elaborate on your points. Try to build an argument. Don't just like throw Superman, Bond, and Katniss Everdeen on the screen and just assume we'll fill in the dots. Like you need to provide references.
Want your players to take part in. Now, you have your characters, but oh no, they're very dynamic, they're very diverse in terms of races, classes, and a lot of them have high stats. What will you do? One of them is like a murder tank, one of them is like James Bond and he could be so charismatic and talk his way out of anything. One of them is like a glass cannon, one of them might as well be a demigod or whatever. What will you do? Well, that's kind of simple. Try to understand the characters that you're dealing with, understand their abilities and powers, understand their backgrounds, their stats, what they can do. Beef up your obstacles. Give your monsters a little bit more extra brawn. Make your fire.
Okay.
That's gameplay. That's not
how to cure
to do with storytelling.
What is he on about?
I don't
This is a game. Okay, it's not a movie we're watching. It's
Playing
not a book we're reading.
You know, if Ray was awesome, she was a video game character, she'd be amazing. It's like, okay, yeah, we get you. What are you talking about?
Basically, what he's saying now is if J.J. Abrams and Ryan Johnson pumped up things so that Ray actually struggled and had to actually think her way out of problems and fight her way out of problems, but she might still lose, so that she would possibly have the possibility of losing, it would have been way better. Ray doesn't struggle. that's part of the problem. And he's saying here, well, you know what you have to do. It's because you have all these Mary Sue characters. What you got to do is you got to make everything. You have to make them struggle. Just bump up the enemies and give them more obstacles to overcome, and then you fix them. Like, yeah, of course, that's exactly what we've been saying. You make them not a Mary Sue anymore by giving them struggles. If they're not powerful enough to just breeze through everything, then yeah, they're pretty good to go.
It's like he's been listening to us, but telepathically in his sleep, and he wakes up. Hey, wait, why don't we just make him harder? It's like, yeah, that's a good idea.
What if you make the character struggle? Then you wouldn't think they're Mary Sue. Oh yeah,
gotta hit
if they struggle, I wouldn't think they're Mary Sue.
I'm still laughing over this. Okay, Andrew Clark, thank you, sir. Remember Wesley Crusher, character writing problem. Yes, we remember Wesley Crusher.
Another super chat.
Oh, another one. Thank you, Nathan Brake. That came out of nowhere. I'm insulted. I've done my best in Star Wars The Clone Wars campaign to make an extremely coherent story, though it helps that I break up sessions like the TV show.
Thing is, I don't know there's any kind of Star Wars, Clone Wars D&D. I know there is a Star Wars D&D, but if there is a Star Wars The Clone Wars D&D,
there are several. I think there are several RPGs. There are several Star Wars RPGs out there right now.
Yeah, I've got the book for one of them, just because I do. But the Clone Wars specifically, I didn't think there was one.
It is possible to make a campaign.
Try.
That does make sense.
No,
I'm sure it's possible.
I know, but I think what he's referring more to the super chat. You can try to make the best story you can out of a campaign, but just the nature of how a D&D story is played out through these random interactions, the players can go do bloody anything, and believe me, we do, which makes it very hard to write it as a very coherent and well-written story.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is about D&D stories specifically, you can tell stories of D&D stories about your campaign and make it very interesting, but the randomness in the metagame is like half the fun of learning. What was your character doing? What was the player of that character doing? What's the interconnecting political or the politics at the table? How was that going on? And why was this happening? All that stuff. So it's not the D&D campaign story by itself probably wouldn't make a great story on its own, but if you add in everything, all the aspects of the campaign, it's very interesting, because there are a lot of YouTube channels now that just read D&D stories and what's going on, and they're getting very popular. But it's because they add in not just a story for the most part, but I mean, sometimes you have little tidbits of a campaign that could make a cohesive, interesting story. But a lot of the fun comes from that meta narrative. What are the players doing while this is happening in campaign, in character?
Which I would argue is more like performance art or impromptu acting, along with the game rules and that everyone knows is going on. Whereas an actual story that has rules and is grounded in a certain setting has to adhere to those rules. So why he's making
there's a difference between There's a difference between a D&D campaign and reading like a what was that called? That book series, a Twilight something. I forgot what it's called. Dragonlance. There's a difference between hearing someone play a D&D campaign and then reading a Dragonlance book.
Right.
Your environment more challenging. Give your NPCs a little bit more of a resistance to charisma, or add more side quests or something if you want to make it more interesting. Maybe add a few more.
The thing is, part of the fun of D&D is to slowly advance to that stage where you can, you've got 20 in charisma. That means you get a +5 on every single roll, and it does make it a bit over. And that's just kind of the fun of the progression. So you're just kind of cutting out half the fun if you're specifically doing that with your campaign, because you're supposed to get more progressively powerful. That's why you level up.
I like how he's saying he's just trying to destroy the substantive, the power of the term Mary Sue, and he's just going over. This part of the video is how not to write a Mary Sue, how to cure the Mary Sue-ness by giving them struggles, and he's going on and on about it. as if he's trying to, as if he's winning this argument. He switched over to our side for a second
like
here.
legitimate things of like how you can make Mary Sue less of a by giving them more struggles, by making the world not bend to them, by strengthening up people so they have more charisma, so they don't just like them instantly.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I go back to the Katniss Everdeen thing because I think he's implying that she's a Mary Sue, but like the world does not bend to Katniss Everdeen. In fact, the world influences her directly, and she oftentimes can't do anything about it. And she has struggles, the whole psychological issues that Southpaw brought up. Like that's something which is in the sequels to the first one.
And here's my favorite part about this argument he's putting forth. he just said that the term his whole argument is the term Mary Sue is useless and it doesn't have any place in actual legitimate critical analysis. But he's saying that, hey, look, your D&D characters are all Mary Sues. So if you notice they're all Mary Sues, give them beef up your opponents, beef up the enemies, give them harder puzzles, make them struggles. So
at the start, you're not a Mary Sue though, because you start off with literally bugger all. You start off at like usually level 1. You usually have like really shit equipment. You start off with a short sword and a backpack.
His whole argument is that the Mary Sue is useless. The term Mary Sue is useless, and it's no good. You can't use it if you're trying to be taken seriously in critical analysis. But here he is saying that, oh, you called these characters Mary Sues, so I know these are Mary Sues. So I, as the metaphorical DM or the hypothetical DM rather, I'm going to go in and as a response to their Mary Sue-ishness, I'm going to tweak the campaign to that it's more difficult, so that the enemies are harder. There's more of the enemies, or there's more. Give them harder struggles in the long run. It's the same thing I would do if I were a writer. Someone called my characters a Mary Sue. Hey, writer, your characters are Mary Sue. Oh, I better go in and see if I can give them more struggles. So obviously, it's a legitimate term. Obviously, it works. Obviously, people know what it means. If you're giving this example right now in D&D.
The video itself is just like the biggest whataboutism argument, or maybe in terms of videos.
It's so big, he's actually attacking himself. Like he's making our argument for us.
Yeah, I was about to say the whole like, give characters struggles. Yeah, give characters struggles. I'm like, I agree with that. You're making it hard. Yeah, you're making.
He's quite but he's quite literally going to, oh, you have a problem with Ray. What about this? What about that? What about that? What about that? It's like, no, we should actually talk about the characters themselves and not just jump around, especially when you're going to D&D, which we've already talked about, so I'm not going to talk.
Anyway, I just got a super chat from Mr. Joe Crazy. Have you guys seen any of Hello Greedo's videos? I can't recall one, but I know the channel.
I unfortunately used to watch him.
I've seen some of his videos. I'm using one as an example in an upcoming video.
I covered a video of his on EFAP once.
Okay, there we go.
Interesting.
Yes.
I think Hello Greedo famously said, I can't imagine a bigger waste of time than debating art.
He has a video on Mary Sue's that we should probably tackle next. It would be very in line with the nature of the series, because I think that he's also of the who cares about Mary Sue's?
Kind of like plot.
All right, let's go fuck him up.
Yes.
A little bit, yeah.
Plot holes don't matter because they're not what movies are about. Okay.
It's like the other video we covered said, oh, I don't care about MacGuffins because they don't matter.
Movies aren't about logic.
They're not
People
equations.
aren't logical.
Well, if you punch someone in the face, it's logical to assume that they're going to get angry. What's not logical to consume is they smile, laugh, bite their own dick off, and
yeah, and it will maybe. I mean, it makes sense in Fight Club. It depends. Context destroys every argument like this, man. When you don't provide any references. Oh, good lord.
Let's press on. Ramble on about D&D characters some more, shall we?
Yeah, we've already talked about D&D, so no one pause it, please.
Characters who will throw your players off. Balance the world around the characters so that way they will fit. You see this all the time on television as well. Remember Static Shock and how he would team up with other superheroes? Yeah, it would be uninteresting if Superman, Batman, or the Justice League just solved everything for Static and outshined the kid. How do we prevent that? How about the reason Superman is here is because 2 of his villains happen to be in North Dakota, villains who have had experience fighting Superman, and to make it doubly fun, one of the villains, let's say Toyman, exploits both Static and Superman's weaknesses, like say, make toy soldiers made of plastic and kryptonite. There, problem solved. We can make it interesting. Or how about the time that Static joined
That
up
sounds
with Batman,
incredibly
Robin,
dumb,
and the Joker
and I've
was
never
in
seen
North
Static
Dakota,
Shock.
and he was getting help from the local metahumans. You know, villains Batman has never met before, and only Static and his unique powers and experiences is best suited to handle this, and even knocked out the Joker too. I just realized if Static...
All these points, I'm like, maybe. I don't even know exactly.
I'd have
what
to
he's
know
arguing
more
for. What is-
context. Has anyone seen Static Shock? I've never seen this show myself.
I've never seen it.
So yeah, all we've got is this word.
I really like that
There's
show.
Very little
It's a good,
context.
Static Shock is a good show.
So do you know what he's arguing here?
Static Shock would sometimes team up with different Justice League characters, and he played a part. I mean, he supplemented Batman. I mean, Batman doesn't have any powers. He just has a lot of gadgets, so he actually helped out Batman a little bit. And in order for it to be an interesting episode, you can't have Batman to solve everything for Static Shock. But obviously, they gave Static Shock some things to do. Like he was helpful with Batman, and Batman did some things. He added his expertise. But again, he's just arguing. He's just making an argument that here's how to fix a Mary Sue. Like here's how to fix the show or the program or the creative work that you're working on, so that one character is not taking over and one character is not a Mary Sue. So again, the term Mary Sue is still useful. He's proving that the term Mary Sue is useful, because if I watch your promo episode, your episode before it's been released, and I say, well, hey, Batman is solving everything for Static Shock. He's kind of a Mary Sue here, isn't he? And you would go, oh, I probably should make him struggle a bit more then, right? Yeah, that'd be a good idea. So as a response of calling Batman a Mary Sue, or your D&D characters Mary Sues, he has argued that the response to that would be giving them more struggles.
As per the
just like every time at the time that you would call someone a Mary Sue, I better give them more struggles.
Also,
Can
I
I
want to say like the plot point he brings up about like making toy soldiers out of plastic and kryptonite sounds a little.
It is Toyman.
Yeah, I know it is
The enemy is
Toyman, but
Toyman.
like, how the hell does he get enough kryptonite, considering it's supposed to be rare, to make these giant toys, and then he makes it as well as I get that he has the plastic, but how does he have the kryptonite, and how does he mix the two together to make plastic?
He's Toyman.
Also,
that's how-
there's something I wanted to point out here. So Jay Longbone is apparently having a Twitter spat with trying to say that it's wrong to call Ray a Mary Sue because she fucked up and almost murdered Chewie. So let me just say something here.
Oh, she didn't almost murder him. It was on a completely different ship.
Here's the thing. So
yeah.
so here's the thing. So she blows up a ship with force lightning that she accidentally uses for the first time because she can just do. And they make you think that it's Chewie for about a minute, and then about a minute later, they reveal that Chewie is fine. So the writers wanted people to think, "Oh, Rey can fuck up," without actually committing to making her fuck ups have lasting consequences.
That still said doesn't work because okay.
The other thing is that clumsiness is a common flaw, quote unquote, given to Mary Sues to create the illusion of flaws in a Mary Sue.
It's absolutely true.
And the other
Another
trouble
thing,
is everyone, just to go quick, and the other trouble is that everyone just forgives her. Like no one blames
Yes.
her. There's like
that's
there's
what I was going to
nothing-
say. We mentioned it in the last stream as well.
Instant forgiveness.
That's what I was gonna
Plus,
say.
Chewbacca's not actually dead.
I have to read a super
No
chat.
one cares.
Dennis Marquez.
Oh yeah, that's
Okay, so Dennis Marquez
Sorry.
did leave a super chat here, and he says, in conclusion, this guy is an idiot. Got it. Now, he then clarifies, I meant the guy in the video, not the person talking who was Literature Devil at the time. So no, it's we're talking about Mr.
I don't know. Does the devil technically have a brain? Is he? I don't think he's human.
Oh,
Mm.
that's a good question. I don't know. How would that work?
Do devils have brains? Do they even have
Sometimes.
organs? Maybe.
Sometimes. Only when you go to the surface.
Are you in the surface right now? Are you currently in the underworld?
Yes.
You have like a library in the underworld.
Infinite.
Is that where you're literally
All the libraries of Alexandria went to hell.
I'm happy we had your super chat and we had your question answered, which was not a question, but that's okay. Thank you, Dennis. Let's continue.
Were written today, he'd be called a Mary Sue. Oh, he defeated the Justice League. So overpowered. I also noticed that people are quick to use the term Mary
I haven't
Sue
seen
when it comes to powers and abilities that seem overpowered at first glance. Supposedly, you can't write a good story if a person's powers are too strong. Well, again, that's bullcrap, and it depends on the skills and priorities of the writer.
That's
and
true.
Also their creativity. Have they considered balancing character design with the design of their world and story? The tools of your story are a great way to ensure that your character fits within your story. With Captain Marvel, it was an inhibitor, amnesia. She didn't know who...
But it wasn't
Captain
an
Marvel is
inhibitor.
a
It didn't do
really
fuck all.
terrible example. It's supposed to not be a Mary Sue.
The thing is, the inhibitor, all it did nothing. She was trying to
It was
correct.
literally a
Like she just it pretends that it doesn't inhibit it anymore, and all of a sudden it or something like that. It's been a while since I watched it, but it means nothing.
no.
She just
Yeah, the
takes
way
it
that
off.
Goes off because she
works.
like overpowers the computer voice instead of
The
her
power limiter doesn't work if you put too much power into it.
Yeah, oh, I remember that quote.
But he's going to give no context, no comparative context either. So he's going to drop this here as if we're going to connect the
Again,
dots ourselves.
As I mentioned before, like she's got nothing to overcome because the guy who, like, her mentor, I suppose she's supposed to be, who's training her at the beginning, says, "Oh, you need to stop being so emotional, and then you'll win." And then she's emotional, and she basically kicks his ass. And then
Well,
she kicks his ass later in the film as
Maybe
well.
because-
So it's like, what's the progression?
It's funny because like she's actually rather wooden throughout most of the movie, and so they keep on saying, "Oh," and that's what I would consider. That's what I would consider an informed flaw. It's a flaw that a character is supposed to have because other characters say they have. Actually, show like they don't actually show like the symptoms of having it, which is one of the things that I would say makes Robin and Mary Sue in The Dark Knight Rises. Not head, but he's actually rather. He keeps his cool rather consistently in that movie.
And he's pretty much always right. That's the other thing, is that like he succeeds at pretty much every single juncture, and he ascends the ranks with no issue. It's because he's altruistic, I suppose, but they needed to develop him more, but they wanted him to be mysterious.
By the way, am I cutting out at all? Like, did I cut out at all back there?
Not as much. Actually, what it might be is if when you're using push to talk, it's only transmitting at like certain times, which might clean up the bandwidth a little, which makes it better. You have cut out
Gotcha.
every now and again, but you're nowhere near as bad.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, there's a few moments that it cuts
Okay.
out, just a droplet, but yeah, especially at the beginnings and ends, like you're speaking really clearly.
Okay, good.
Let's keep going.
Then again, I sometimes cut out still
good
on the stream.
guys and the bad guys really were because she was being manipulated by her superiors, or she was in space helping out across the
There are so
universe,
many better
or the
stories that
Skrulls
do
or
that.
other worlds affected by Thanos' snap. And don't lie, Carol taking down Thanos' ship and her giving him a death stare as he pathetically tried to give her a headbutt was badass, and you know it. With Superman,
It was not.
It,
It really
made
was not.
It was.
There was
Right,
another
that they were
instance
going
of
to-
them diminishing the power of the villain so that their Little Miss fan fiction character can look better.
I was about to
It-
say, like, it makes sense. It's consistently written with what it is, but I hated it. It's like they put her in the exact same position that Captain America was instead of Infinity War, where he's trying to hold back the fist, but instead of like fighting and like being beaten aside like Cap was,
Like,
he takes a headbutt from Thanos and doesn't even flinch. It's
You
it's
see,
an-
I
it
would've
really
been
hurts
okay.
Thanos.
I would have been okay with Captain Marvel being involved more in the fight if Thanos had a gauntlet with 5 out of 6 stones, all 6 stones, because then he could just snap his fingers. So just take one of
The
the
thing
6
is-
stones away, and he could probably go toe to toe with her, and that could have been cool to see. The way that they presented it in
So-
the film, it was like I was afraid that they were going to have her come in and basically single-handedly win the fight for the Avengers, which, please no.
The thing is, they should have had like her fighting alongside everyone else to like try and defeat Thanos, because because it takes the entire team of Spider-Man, Star-Lord, Iron Man, and Doctor Strange and everyone, just to get like a drop of blood out of Thanos. But then for Thanos to deal with Captain Marvel, he has to pull one of the power stone out of the glove to punch her, and that's the only way he can like defeat her.
Yeah, that scene was just irritating to watch. In all honesty, and like I said, her destroying the ship makes sense with what we see inside of Captain Marvel, but it's just like
Another thing, a comment I just thought was funny. Semantic Dragon says, "I like her being punched in the face. I also wish Gwyneth Paltrow got punched in the face as well. Take that, Pepper Potts."
Oh yeah, I was
considering this shit like.
Well, the reason he brought up Captain Marvel in the first place was because she had a limiter, which is an actual in-universe explanation why she is not amazing, which is good. you want that. You want, oh, you're not amazing because you have this limiter. Now that's
terrible.
Well,
the terrible explanation
in relation to
putting
being
Mary
a
power
limiter on her.
only limits the power if you believe it doesn't limit the power, and then if you do too much power, then
it's the same
explodes.
with midichlorians. It's the same. Like, it's a dumb explanation, but at least
No
it's an
one
explanation.
defends midichlorians.
I
No
know.
one defends them.
They're horrible.
Everyone knows it.
That's fine. Okay, Southpaw, if you have to go, man, just go. It's totally fine. It's totally
Yeah, I actually do have a prior commitment to get to now. But I will catch you guys on the next stream, hopefully.
no problem, man. Thanks for
Yeah.
sounds
Good.
See you later, man.
Okay, let's keep going, guys. We got less than 10 minutes.
I don't even know what point he's making right now. I don't know what all these examples are for, what he's trying to say. He's just spouting nonsense. I'm like, build an argument, man. Use one point. If you're going to talk about Captain Marvel and like why she's not a Mary Sue or why the writing is good, like just talk about that solely. Don't just say her destroying the ship and fighting Thanos was awesome. It's prove it or provide some sort of reference. Don't do this.
Man, it's either kryptonite, there was
At least we're
magic
getting through this
involved,
video
Superman's
faster.
moral code is preventing him from doing something, or they're like Lex, the villain is very well prepared, patient, and clever, and they were able to fool or manipulate Superman. No, not you, Proto-Lex, fuck off. Taking advantage of a character's morals or lack of awareness
Well, at least he has some
or
taste.
thinking abilities is a perfect way of handling uber-powerful and competent characters. In other cases, it's the rules of the world that the writer has made and the other characters within it. With Piper Halliwell from Charmed, yeah, Piper's freezing and combustion power seems too strong at first glance, and she is essentially the most powerful of the three sisters, but to anyone
Those
who's
effects
actually
look
watched the
terrible.
show, you'll know that Piper's powers have limits.
Just go,
Not every
and then
demon freezer
nothing
blows
happens.
up
It's just an
because they're
explosion
too
just
strong,
happens
or they have
somewhere.
some
I've
sort of
never seen
magical
Charmed. I've
protection.
only
All
seen
these
like the cover of
examples
Charmed.
are
I know Charmed
narrative
exists.
conveniences by the writer to make the story more interesting, and so the characters again.
I know I
fit in
keep
the
going on
story.
about it, but
In
god
case
damn, this
hasn't hit
music's
home for some
really
people
pissing
yet,
me off because
another
it just keeps
example would be
repeating over and over and over.
Dun 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 dun
Dun dun dun
To
dun
go along with
dun
repeated
dun
scattershot
dun.
of information and points without giving
It's
any
symbolic of
context.
how he repeats the same argument.
So his argument
About
was
to say,
that
that's-
the lore and the setting can be changed. It's like, yeah, you're right. If they were to work within the confines of the character's abilities, explain them.
Yeah.
Great, fantastic.
I mean, so far every example has been these characters are powerful and you still like them. This character is powerful and you still like them. This character is powerful and competent. You still like them. This character is powerful and you still like them. Therefore, Mary Sue is wrong. Did you ever step back and think why there's a difference between why people hate Ray and people like, for example, the Fairly Odd Parents, even though both are powerful, or why they like Superman or Batman, even though they're also powerful and so is Ray. What's the difference? And I think that he stopped at you just hate women, because if there's any sort of analysis there, he could have come up with at least some list of points as to why they're different or why they're the same. He doesn't. Just this character is powerful and this character is powerful, therefore if this character is powerful and this character is powerful, and you call this character Mary Sue and this character not Mary Sue, and this character is very, very popular. Therefore, Mary Sue is not an actual term or a useful term or a term with any substance in critical analysis. And it doesn't work because he's not giving us any points or substance, or he's not making any comparisons whatsoever. It's just, here's this and here's that.
And he's making our argument for us while he's describing you could fix a Mary Sue.
How to fix a Mary Sue.
By
Hey,
changing the setting.
you got a party full of Mary Sues, just give them more struggles. Well, you don't say. Yeah. Wow, you were.
Bravo.
What a groundbreaking
Jules Chan, we
discovery.
love you.
Give characters struggles. Who would have thought of that?
He came along with this new idea.
Cosmo and Wanda, Timmy Turner's nigh all-powerful fairy godparents. If it weren't for the rules, Timmy would be able to wish for anything or would be able to undo his mistakes from a backfired wish very easily every single time. There would be no tension. That wouldn't be a problem with the characters, but it would be a problem with the story and the...
Yes, so they fixed it by adding rules and world building. I don't never seen it, but from the way he's described it, the rule, like that's a way to limit the power. So he can't do fucking anything. It brings world building, and it means that there is a limit.
It's really weird how he's almost saying that there's no such thing as character problems. There's only storytelling problems. And I'm like, with what he's describing, I might agree with him, but
it's Fairly Odd Parents? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a distinction without a difference. I'm like, he's describing issues with characters technically, but sure they could relate to the storytelling, I suppose. But it's the same difference.
Timmy Turner has two Fairly Odd Parents, and he has infinite wishes. But Timmy Turner as a character is very, very flawed. He's a 10-year-old kid, so he has these impulses, and he has all these flaws. And each episode is going around with these flaws and desires, and him learning a lesson usually by the end for some reason or another.
Also, it's a TV show about fairies intended for children.
They're completely the same.
Comparing
Star Wars, a space opera, to a cartoon, totally the same thing, really.
Well,
it's a TV show about fairies intended for children, okay? So obviously the quality doesn't matter, right?
Something independent of those characters. Other times, the rules are very specific and clearly a contrivance to move the plot along and keep things interesting, like the rule with a copy spell or the rule involving altered time. Other times, it's not the rules, but rather Cosmo.
I haven't seen Fairly Odd Parents, and I wouldn't know what you're talking about unless I'd seen those episodes.
Powerful beings who are conveniently impervious to magic, like dragons, superheroes, and frickin' gods. Or it would be the dreadful butterfly net. These are all things that are part of the world or narrative the writer has made to ensure a counterbalance to their uber special, competent, powerful characters. So,
thank you, Miss GBOF Sid. Wait, colon Sid. My female character is powerful, and you call her Mary Sue. You're sexist. For some reason. Oh. Well.
I made a female character. If you call her Mary Sue, you're sexist. That's as far as he goes. It's really easy being on this side of the argument, or being on Jules Chan's side of the argument, because we can go for 6+ hours explaining exactly step by step, point by point, why Ray's and Mary Sue and characters as powerful as she is aren't. Then all Jules Chan has to do is say, no, you just hate women.
Yeah, I was about to say we kept going on these tangents and talking about Mary Sue and all this. Like this is what's interesting about these conversations, why I like them. It's like I understand there are people out there who say the term Mary Sue shouldn't be used. Like I think my older brother actually isn't a fan of that, but like what he's like, what maybe we should use the word like unchallenged hero, or maybe like characters like with backstories that aren't there. And like that's what I've said. It isn't necessarily, I don't need to use the term Mary Sue because all the troubles are with the traits. They just match up with what a lot of people relate to Mary Sue's being. So I'd be fine if he was making that type of argument, but he really is just saying this all just relates to sex. Is you're sexist, and like Mary Sue's aren't bad. It's just storytelling.
It's kind of like the so as far what I've kind of discovered is that when people hear the words like objective when it comes to talk about film, there's a very much a knee-jerk reaction. However, if you describe, what you're doing when you're being objective without saying the word objective, they're often like very open to the idea. It's like, well, I think critically about films, and I reason and explain, why it is good or bad. It's like, okay, I accept that. And then if you say objective, all of a sudden it's a knee jerk, and it's like, oh no, you can't be objective about film. It's all artsy and all arts and crap.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I think that was where the conversation with John came in. Because like he was listening to what we were doing and he was trying to present argumentation, and it's like there's something about the word that just triggers people. And I'm like, I've said this, I'd be fine using different words. I'd be fine using critical thinking, like factually based, well-founded, like accurate, It's like, all I care about is that you're using references and to support your points rather than just making stuff up. Because like, there's a difference between what we do and what Jonathan McIntosh does on his channel, where he's just making up stuff to try to support his narrative about sex. And it's like, dude, you're making stuff up. You're inventing a film to try to support your points. So.
I mean, artists tend to be very sensitive people. It's just a fact. Artists tend to be pretty sensitive especially about the work that they poured their heart into, and and they can take criticism. Like it's easier to take criticism when you think that, oh, it's I didn't actually do anything wrong. This person just dislikes it. This person just doesn't understand. It's usually I think, as far as I know, I've seen
the age-old story.
That tends to be a common trait of artists. Like, it is not anything wrong with me, it's something wrong with you. But if you bring in the idea of an objective critique, then you have the idea of the artist actually being at fault and not the person critiquing it. And some people just can't handle that.
And honestly, that's the same thing goes for video essays, which is why I think a lot of people say artist objective, so like they don't have to support their points, or they're not held to their references. Because otherwise, if you get something wrme, then you need to either admit it or your video is flawed, which a lot of people don't want to do. It's like, yeah.
As far as I'm aware, like me and LIteratureDevil are the only ones that like can make some form of art, which is, I suppose, close to what people consider art. Some people don't really consider video essays to be art, if you no offense or anything. But as someone who writes comics and someone who does visual effects as art, it is very important as a writers and any kind of artist whatsoever to hear the criticism and just to think, well, I care about this a lot and I want it to be the best thing it can be. So I'm going to take this criticism and see if I can make it better. But it's kind of unfortunate. A lot of people have the knee-jerk reaction of, "Oh no, it's you're just being mean." Like,
yeah, I was about to say that's another thing I talked to John about. Is I was like, the criticism can be used to improve your work, and it's like he mentioned the whole idea of him having spelling mistakes inside of his videos that people keep bringing up. And I was like, you can still use that. Like, I get that it's frustrating that people will repeat that type of stuff. And like, you even have Southpaw with the mic, all that. Like, I get that criticism sucks sometimes and it can hurt, but it's like, you can also use it. You can use it to improve, and you make it so that people have better reactions to your work.
Spelling mistakes is something, an issue that if it comes up so often that people are bringing it up, you can fix that. You can just make sure you spell check every single thing you say in your video when you bring it up on screen.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a very thing easy to do. If you're a visual effects artist trying to go in the industry and you never accepted any kind of criticism, you're going to be out in the street.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty much the same case in anything, man. You can improve your work, and I say this about like writing video essays. It's just like, you just reread and redraft. Like, that's the important thing. Don't just write out and then go, or otherwise you're going to make mistakes. Just try to make sure you're being accurate and you know what you're doing. And same goes for movies. Same goes for everything, man. Criticism is important.
Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, back to why we hate women.
Yeah.
I hope you get what I'm saying. It doesn't matter the power levels, the type of characters, the concepts that you have, or whatever. It all depends on the skills, priorities, and creativity of the writer. Your character...
Okay, so it's not the problem with the character, it's the problem with the writer. It's like, oh, sure. Yeah, that's right. It is the problem with the writer who wrote the character.
How dare you blame the writer?
It's distinction without a difference.
Like character. America is kind of a pattern of badly written character, and badly written character is written by a writer who had made some mistakes. Not necessarily a bad writer, but a writer who's at least made some mistakes.
Yeah, right.
I was going to make the jokes like, how dare you blame the writer? Like, or saying that jokingly, ironically.
Who wrote it, I suppose. Yeah, character stems from writing, so I don't know I don't know why you would separate those out. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah. When he said that it's not a problem with the character, it's a problem with the story. Character is part of story. It's very strange what he's trying to say.
I mean, yeah, this seems like another Ray defense. My waifu Ray is perfect. It's just that she just happened to be written with some mistakes or something. It's not Ray's fault, okay, guys. It's not Ray's fault. She's still perfect and beautiful and stunning and brave. It's the writer's fault. Okay. You just have to get that past your sexist evil skull.
I don't disagree with you necessarily, my friend, but it just I don't know what the purpose is in separating them because they all stem from a writer. Writers write characters. What are you talking about?
Can be the most overpowered or overly competent person in history, but so long as you balance the world and story around that character so they will fit, and so long as it feels organic, it'll be fine. Also, it helps to make the story.
Yes, that part is true. But that doesn't mean that the term Mary Sue is useless. It's more like, oh, my setting and plot and story, they're not balanced to the character. Therefore, it's a Mary Sue. That's your character's Mary Sue. Oh, so I must do some tweaking with the story and the character's powers and how they fit within the setting. Oh, fantastic! Thank you for letting me know.
We've already explained. We're having to explain the same shit over and over again. I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
We're
it's just
repeating our points. But
round
this goes
and
back.
round.
All he needed was like a grade 9 English teacher to say, okay, so you're saying the same thing 5 times over. You might be wrong.
This goes back. This goes back to what I was saying. But it's like it's the whole idea of like the term Mary Sue is bad because all this relates to all these problems and like which fall under the definition of Mary Sue from what we understand.
And it takes
Mary Sue covers all of that.
It takes a certain few criteria to hit Mary Sue. As we see, there's a scale, there's a list, and there's various permutations. And as soon as you hit that sweet spot, I think it's like 5 or 6 elements. Like, yep, you're a Mary Sue. Not completely perfect because there's flavors of Mary Sue, obviously, but we consider certain characters on that scale, like Wesley Crusher. He's not a God Sue.
Oh yeah.
He's not a Sun Tzu.
But he is a flavor of Mary Sue.
He is a flavor. Exactly.
In most episodes. He got better. I mean, he got better, but his first few appearances, he was pretty bad.
Season 1 was bad in general, so.
Yeah. So, I think we don't really talk about season 1 of TNG.
Or 2 so much. Yeah, 1 and 2 we don't talk about so much.
Once you get to 3, though, when you get to season 3, then
it's like
better.
Okay, we know what we're doing.
There's Picard.
He's got the collars. They put the collars on the. They're no longer reclining at the con. They're not like
they have the good uniform.
Lazy boying their way through the galaxy.
I think I said this last time in the last stream, was that the Mary Sue is kind of like the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. You don't have to use all the hero's journey to use the hero's journey. You can leave out some parts and some elements. You don't have to have all the listed items under the Mary Sue umbrella to be a Mary Sue. But you can have some of them and still be Mary Sue. It all depends on how your character is treated. And that's essentially how it goes. I mean, the Mary Sue is this a character that's not balanced out with the like Jules Chen said, a character that is not balanced within the criteria of the universe, the context of the universe. But he's trying to push that particular argument forward as if that debunks the usefulness of the term Mary Sue, which it absolutely does not. Like I said, you call a character Mary Sue, that means they're not balanced within the rest of the universe. Thank you for letting me know. I'll go ahead and fix that, balance it out, give it more struggles. Thank you very much.
Story fun, which I know is an even greater challenge in this day and age, but I believe in you, young, aspiring writers. Tropes, most of the time, are not there to determine whether something...
Just saying, I've seen...
This is the third time.
I've seen the next generation of writers, or at least in my educational area. I do not have hopeful ideas. I do not believe the future is hopeful with these people going into writing.
I'm just going to say, this is the third time he's using the exact same screen capture animation. He didn't pause it. He didn't use it at all. He just shows it on the screen as if he's read it. It's like, oh, thank you. You've actually looked at... Nope, he hasn't. There's no way.
I was about to say, I prefer the people who put up like a specific quote from one of those things or like build off of that rather than just scrolling through and acting like they've read it. It's like, prove that you read that.
No, I mean, everyone here read all of the quick 2-second scroll through, right? And you read every single word. So obviously, us and Jules Chen are on the same page now.
He couldn't be asked to like take specific parts of it to construct his own little narrative.
Couldn't do it. Not even one passage, not even one little tiniest bit, simplest of quotes, not a single one. Just show us that he can scroll through a page with a mouse.
At least there was, I'm trying to remember who was it before that said something along the lines of like defending General Leia flying through space by saying like, oh, a test on chimpanzees in near zero G conditions and something like that. And
At
one
least,
specific element.
at least Wit and Folly uses quotes, okay, from sources. Even Wit and Folly uses quotes.
I was about to say, I prefer people who are wrong and they have references to people who just don't have any references at all, because there's no way to fact check them and there's no way to like confirm. Like, support what you believe with some sort of like evidence, rather than just saying this, that, like, and being vague.
But then the specific reference I was talking about was someone who was literally nitpicking little details, and even then the details they were picking out were wrong. It's like, oh, chimpanzees survived a couple minutes in near vacuum conditions, and then so oh, that means Leia can survive out in space for like an hour, and then she's conscious enough to fly back into the ship and survive and be completely fine.
Yeah, that's where the discussion comes in, because you can like build off of that. Like, it's like he has a reason to believe that. He's like, okay, I googled this. This is what I got. It's like, okay, let's put your Google search to the test. So.
I'd have him on the show, and all we would do is just talk about this page. That's all he would do. It's like, what don't you like? What sentence is irksome for you, sir? What's wrong with this page?
Let's go. Let's just keep going. Let's try and get this over with. We've done this in like 10 minutes in 2 hours, or less than that.
It's going smooth sailing right now, because he's not making
1.5 hours.
All right, let's keep going.
Good or bad, they're a jumping off point for your character design or story. Sure, there are some offensive tropes, such as burying
your gaze.
People usually conflate
Go back, I want to see what that is.
Wait, hold on, what? There's some offensive
Bury
tropes.
your gaze.
Just
character design or
Bury your
story.
gaze.
Sure,
Never heard of that one.
Okay, let's read this. Bury your gaze is a trope in media, including all its variants, as a homophobic cliche. The presentation of the deaths of the LGBT characters, where these characters are normally able to be viewed as more expendable than their heteronormative counterparts. In this way, the death can be treated as exceptional in circumstances. Thus, it can be fairly said in aggregate queer characters are more likely to die than straight characters.
This sounds dubious to me.
I've never heard of this term.
So there'd be like a horror movie where the gay characters were offed first or something like
Has
that?
anyone ever watched a movie or read a book where the gay guys die?
I can't think of that. I've seen it where the black people die. That's like in the old horror movies, but
Yeah,
I've
that was
never
a
seen
joke.
In Mass Effect 3, as soon as Cortez came on, like into the game, like he died. He just got shot in the back of the head. Don't even know where it came from. He just died. Well, isn't Cortez like the gay one in Mass Effect 3?
He's the gay pilot, but he's throughout the entire game, and he only
No,
possibly...
but I was joking.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was joking, saying, of course, in Mass Effect 3, as soon as he comes on, he dies. He gets buried.
I've never heard of this. The trope of the death
Trainer.
of the
As soon as
Also
Trainer comes
known
online, it's like, oh, look, dead.
As dead lesbian syndrome. What the hell?
What is this?
It's hardly fallen out of use of post 2015, and the media
was it in
riots
use?
about the overuse of the trope. I don't fucking know.
What movies is he watching?
I think maybe we'll continue the video. So obviously he's going to go through some examples, some different, some.
I love how
pinpoints
he
and
gives
shows
us
media
chance
with
to
that.
look at, he doesn't scroll through it really fast.
Is there
at
some
least.
sort of sexual movie with murder, and it's all these perverts or whatever, or deviants, and they have a large cast?
And they're all straight white men.
They have some half is straight white, and the other half is all whatever, and they all just end up killing off half the cast because. Is that a pattern?
We all
in
know you should just
storytelling?
kill the big gay. The big gay deserves
Knives out
to
that
die.
half of them are gay.
It's like, what? What is
Well, that's
this?
averted my expectation.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
in Mass Effect 3, they definitely had a bit thing about the gays. That's the whole the reason why the Reapers came was just a white.
It's not synthetic life or anything.
Yes.
Organic life.
Got a super chat from Lieutenant Colonel Tanya von Degerschiff. I would bury Julz if I could. Sadly, it's illegal.
It's illegal.
I will make it legal.
What jurisdiction are you under?
I am the Senate.
I am the Senate.
Initiate Order 60. What is it? Wait, 64? What are we at? Oh, 69, right.
69.
Execute Order 70. Kill Julz Chan.
Is that how Palpatine got a son? He executed Order 69.
I was about to say. Oh god. Do it.
I love how they had to go back and fix that because like at no point did J.J. Abrams stop to think. It's like, when would Palpatine have like time to get on? And it'll be possibly going to like ruin this character in any kind of way by making him some kind of sex pervert.
That would have been bold. That would have been really big stretch.
Then they had to do the whole clone thing.
If he turned out to be like some sort of womanizing, like nice-looking guy, you'd be like, "Oh, really? Wow, this is it came back to life. Is that okay? I could buy that. All right."
He just uses like the force, or was it the force vision thing, well, force projection, and he pretends to be someone else, like the younger, more handsome version, and then he hits on the ladies, and then he just turns off the lights, and then so they don't know the difference.
People are making
it's jokes. Like, you're very baggedy, Palpatine.
People making jokes about the Reapers. It's like, oh, we're going to save this civilization because they all turned gay. It's like, no, it's not. It's not a good plot. All right, this is fun enough. Let's keep going because I have no idea where he's going with this.
The side conversations are much more entertaining than the actual.
I was about to say all this stemmed from an article he just threw on screen randomly without addressing it.
Bury the
examples
gays.
He brings up and how he explains each and every example of this trope and how it's relevant to this conversation.
He doesn't. He just shows them. We're like, what do we think from this?
I was about to say, how does this support your argument that the tropes would bury the gays?
Here's a trope. Here's a trope. Therefore, Mary Sue is not a valid term.
That's right. He didn't bring up LGBT. There's the pattern again. Remember, it's politics, capitalism.
He's a walking stereotype. He's bringing up everything.
Bingo cards.
Anti-men,
anti-white.
So if you use the term Mary Sue, not only are you sexist, you're also homophobic. Okay. And you're pro-capitalist, and therefore you're evil.
There are some offensive tropes, such as burying your gays, but the ones people usually conflate with Mary Sue are some of the...
Just to say, for something to ought to be a trope, it doesn't have to like happen like at least a couple times.
I wish. Maybe this is a recent... It said in 2015 that bury your gays is a thing, so we're just not hip to their groove. We just don't know what's on TV these days.
I think it meant like...
I guess I didn't see enough media where they bury the gays. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining that, like they're just a TV show where they just kind of like got big hole and they're just kind of like throwing all the gays and just kind of like put them, use the shovel.
Maybe
to close it up.
It's a Great Britain thing where like Midsummer Murders just had this entire series or episodes of just all these murders of gay people. You're like, what? How?
Well, I've never watched EastEnders, so it's perfectly possible they could be doing.
This is
maybe Downton Abbey. Never seen that either. They could be doing it. I don't know.
They do have homosexuals in Downton Abbey. I do know that.
But no examples though. So just like most of Julz Chan's points, he's going to present something and not just leave it there. He's going to present something and just leave it hanging there as if we already know what he's talking about and know the full context.
Maybe he knows so much about media that we just have like to him it's common sense. He's like, it's gays, they die.
It's common sense.
Also, the trope of like the person at the back dying first is that's probably a worse trope or a more common trope than bury the gays.
Oh, the sacrificial lamb or the idealistic everyman who gets killed instantly. We saw that even first few minutes of Mass Effect, really, with what's his name? I can't remember. But yeah, they always have that.
Yeah, the guy that you can't remember just dies instantly.
Just dies. You're not supposed to remember. It's the guy who dies. You have to avenge him, and you're like, oh.
He yells like one line. I didn't even talk to him at the beginning of the game. Like you have the option to like talk with these people. I didn't even care. I was just like, oh no, walk past you. Oh, he's dead now. Goodbye. Right. I'll get Ashley. I'll bang that.
The most cookie-cutter, bare-bones, basic concepts. Heck, some of these characters are the basis for these very benign tropes. If your only gripe with a character is that they are supposedly too perfect, which everybody has a different idea of what perfection is, then you need to either explain yourself or get the frack out of here while the grown-ups do the talking.
Which we usually do.
One person's Mary Sue can...
Yeah, you see that? You're all kids, and you're all ignorant, stupid kids, because you call someone a Mary Sue.
You're not explaining yourself well enough. Oh, okay. How many more videos?
This is coming from Julz Chan, who has explained nothing.
Yeah. How many more essays and videos and blog posts?
I want to point out the comments again. So, what if all the characters in the show are gay? It's like they call it
They call it Batwoman? That's good.
Oh yeah, Batwoman.
I gave up on I couldn't take it. Batwoman just hurts my brain.
I watched the first episode, gave up, just watched the EFAP instead. Infinitely more enjoyable.
Okay.
Few episodes. I swear, me and my younger brother lost our minds when we watched the van explosion. That scene is so hilarious.
That underwater was even worse. So yeah. Anyway, let's keep going.
Be another person's favorite character. People relate or resonate with different things. In fact, on the subject of relatability, such a thing is a bit low on the list of priorities because, again, people relate to different things. Just because you can't relate to a character, that shouldn't be the point. The point is...
Okay, wait, slow down here. When you have a god, do you relate to them easier, or when you
No
don't
one
have a
can
god?
relate to them.
It's kind of hard for me to
this is
grasp Ray.
This
No
is a
one
little bit different from like
The thing
a
is,
character like Travis Bickle in terms of like relatability. There's a difference between relatability and like power levels making a character like not even human or like in any way.
thing is, when it comes to relatability, there are certain things which we can all relate to. Loss, love,
Basically, humanity.
any kind of
we can relate
sad
to
as well.
humanity
Yeah,
character shows.
and we can generally relate to these things in our character, even if we haven't personally gone through, losing our best friend in a war and or PTSD. Those, we still have these, negative feelings like they're having, and we can relate to them through that, even if it's not quite exact. But the problem with a character that's just completely perfect and never has any of these problems is that we can't relate to them because they haven't they're not experiencing anything that we've experienced. They're just winning everything, and no one's ever won everything. No one's ever been completely perfect.
to find them engaging, to find their stories and adventures engaging. Sure, relatability is one way that you can find a character engaging, but it's not the only way. Many of the characters that I've listed off, I can't really relate to. I can't identify with their experiences, but I still...
Relatability isn't everything. We've already talked about this. We don't need to pause again.
To him it means engaging is more important than relatability, which is like saying, is this character attractive or interesting? It's the most generic thing you could say about... You could say that about a chair or the set design.
The relatability aspect is definitely easier to do. It's an easy way of doing storytelling, and it's not lazy. It's just a different easier way of doing it. And it's a lot more complicated and harder to make a character that isn't immediately just relatable. But even then, Zuko, I think most people can relate to Zuko. Things like the expectations of your parents, either again loss because he ended up losing the heir to the throne and got kicked out, and all these other things that happen to him, and he slowly ends up having to learn, and he becomes good in the end. And there's even points where he's really socially awkward because he's now with the people he was trying to kill before. So there's plenty of relatable things about this character.
Yeah, like most characters in general are going to be relatable. Like even if they're not exactly heroic, like Lou Bloom is a character who I relate to on some level, even though like his actions are like horrible inside of that movie, but there's still traits which you can draw from, like the fact that he's a hard worker and he like has high ambitions and he's trying to achieve goals. It's like you can relate to a ton of different characters, even if they're not relatability is difficult, but like pretty much every writer is going to try to make their characters relatable to on some level.
I don't think I like his understanding of putting relatability as a second value, as opposed to just saying, do you like this thing? That's not why you have characters. You have to identify with the characters. They are trying to be people. So yeah, you want to have really cool spaceship design, you want to have really cool special effects, nice music, nice sounds, so it hooks you into the story. It engages you. But what about that character engages you? It's their personality. It's what they're trying to do, what they're trying to achieve, the reason why they're trying to achieve it, the plot. That is what we need to relate to, bare minimum. And then you could add character traits like they were hurt as a child, or they're striving to do something else.
Or you could try and do something like a Garak, and you could make them really mysterious and make them interesting and charismatic and fun in a sense.
Mystery is a whole other area. Exactly, right. So there's lots of things to engage a character. There's a lot of reasons to hook you into a story. But if you don't relate to characters, you get a pretty empty story.
Well, no, as I said before, you don't necessarily relate to Garak because he doesn't show a lot of his. Well, at the beginning at least, he doesn't show any cards, so it's hard for you to feel about something. You don't know what they're experiencing. Garak always puts on like a shield, and he's always putting on a smile, and he's kind of being a bit of a dick, and he's like laughing. What he says is quite funny as well. So, like, it's hard to relate to him, but then you start to unravel the mystery, and you start to see more of his character, and then you end up learning that this guy who he was trying to impress his entire time was his father, and his father couldn't publicly acknowledge him. And then that's when because he was looking for the approval of his father, that's when the relatability starts to come in. Of course, other Garak episodes.
You can't really 100% relate to characters like Luke Skywalker or Rey, characters who came from humble beginnings, who grew up on a farm, or who grew up on a junkyard, who never really...
People who have grown up from anywhere you can relate to. That is literally the point of having an everyman.
Yeah,
and you even called Luke and Mary.
I can't believe you said that about Luke. It's just like everyone can relate to Luke. Kids, little girls can relate to Luke. Where is he going with this?
And I was about to say, I think most people could relate to Rey at the beginning, like when you like see a day in her life. The trouble is like later on, like everyday characters are relatable.
They spend a lot of time setting Rey up, and you're like, okay, this is her lifestyle. This is who she is. This is what she does. You're like, oh, I can get that. I see it. Great.
I do not think this video should have been 25 minutes long.
Yeah, I was about to say, like,
you cut it down a little bit.
We went from D&D to Captain Marvel to Zuko to it's all over the place. This is why I was like, just stick to one example, use that. Like, explain why the term Mary Sue isn't important because X movie, and here's my reasoning. Or don't go all over the place like this.
Just a scattershot of examples and things with no substance holding them up. Here's this and this and this and this and this. Oh, you don't agree with this? Well, here's this and this and this and this and this. What makes these characters important? What makes these characters so significant that you would use these characters as examples in this assertion? And then he doesn't do anything. It's just here's some examples with no context or anything like that. No explanation, no reason why. They're just there.
Knew their real parents, but discovered some larger-than-life destiny. Maybe you could even look up to these people even if you can't relate to them. Maybe you'd want to be as brave as Luke or Rey. Maybe you'd want to be as kind and
well, how can you look up to someone if you can't relate to them in any way?
A born leader like...
Because, well, I've never looked up to a character and been inspired by a character. So I don't know like what that's like for people, but I assume you have to be able to relate to a character in some way, shape, or form to be able to be inspired by them.
I was about to say, I think everyone's key problem with Rey comes with her power levels because it makes her so that she isn't very relatable. It's like no one can relate to a character who is essentially God and cannot make mistakes and never faces consequences for her many actions which should get her in trouble. Like the boat scene where she just is like riding 350-foot waves with no problem, even though she grew up on a desert, is like, you know, she doesn't face any consequences for that. She doesn't lose ever. And it's like that's what makes it so she's not relatable.
And it's like, I'd say the only girls that kind of look up to Rey are usually the girls who haven't, you know, it's like they're very young and they don't like quite know a lot about storytelling, and the only reason they're in a story is because of you know, flashy explosions, bang bang, and they look at Rey as a girl and they think, oh look, Rey's a girl, I'm a girl, I want to dress up as Rey, I want to be like Rey. It's pretty much like how like Bob the Builder is like for many boys. It's like,
Yeah,
Bob
it's-
the Builder. I want to be a builder because he's a boy, and that's a very shallow way to look up to a character. I think purely based on gender and literally nothing else.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, honestly, when I was growing up, like the movies which I related to were like the Karate Kid movies, like Daniel and Mr. Miyagi. Like, I love those characters, and it wasn't just that they like fought, like there were fight scenes with them. It's like it's the development between them and like what they represent in terms of like friendship and like learning from each other. That's the
obviously
stuff
it wouldn't just be the fact they're males either.
Yes, I would probably say that, but who knows? I could be sexist, that maybe I just don't.
You could not know you're sexist while still being sexist, apparently, to this guy.
He said that too last time. He said that you can think you're not sexist while still being sexist. He even said that. So you even got that spot.
Okay, then. All right, sure.
Goodwill goes out the window.
I can relate more to Optimus Prime than I can to Ray. Okay, guys?
I told you.
Anyone-
Jules Chen is all the bad arguments. He's all of them.
Optimus Prime is at least a better leader than Ray. Optimus Prime's like, he's the leader that's strong enough to be soft.
He's a better
Ray's not
people
even strong enough to be soft.
than Ray.
Yeah.
Ray doesn't give a crap about it. He just does her own thing. Like, okay, thanks, Ray. Just leave
Well, that's
everyone.
the trouble.
No,
Is he saying that Optimus Prime is a Mary Sue? I don't even know.
Just going over Transformers, if any of you are looking forward to it, I believe there's an animated Netflix show that's coming out soon about the Transformers war on Cyber, which I think it looks pretty cool.
Is it in like the classical animation style? Like, how does it look?
It's using I think it goes for like the G1 look. I'll see if I can find.
Oh, nice. I'd be game to see that.
All right, let's keep going.
Optimus Prime, strong-willed and confident like Captain Janeway or Carol Danvers, clever as Batman, or as smooth as James Bond. We've been writing stories about so-called Mary Sues for a long time, you guys. If they were so inherently bad, so detrimental to writing, then we wouldn't continue making stories about them at all. Maybe it's time to reevaluate.
I think what he's just going for right here is that all these other characters, like James Bond is a Mary Sue, Superman is a Mary Sue, like tons of characters are Mary Sues. He's missing all context and nuance, which destroys that statement.
Just go about Transformers.
Like I said, he can't have context in his argument, or else it falls apart.
The war it is called Transformers War for Cybertron, which is not going to be confusing at all when thinking about the.
Yeah. That looks nice. Just from the.
We can. Well, I guess we could watch it on stream after this. End it on a good note.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's cool. If you want to share that with the group, you can. But there's a link to YouTube about Transformers War of Cybertron trailer 2020 coming to Netflix soon, I guess. Is it already out? I don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. I haven't seen it. I just saw the trailer and thought, oh, this is pretty cool. And I thought we could watch it maybe.
Cool.
Sweet. Hopefully the rest of this is like a Patreon outro.
Yeah, okay, the quicker we get over the quicker we get to watch War for Cybertron trailer. Okay, let's do this, guys. Shut the fuck up.
Critique another person's character and stop holding up shitty writing standards that wouldn't hold up in any writing class. So knock it off with the fanfic slang and tell us in detail as to why you think this character is bad.
I don't disagree with that. Like I've brought this up before, but the idea that maybe the term isn't what should be used. Like we shouldn't just say characters. Like if someone just said Ray is a Mary Sue, it's like why? It's like it's just because she is. I'd be like, well, you need to have some references. Like anyone who says something is a Mary Sue, that's when the support arguments are supposed to come in, which I think he's trying to suggest. And I'm like,
But
you need to with
either way. It doesn't. His argument is that the Mary Sue term is useless and meaningless and has no place in serious analytical critique, and he has done nothing to convince me that he's right.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think that the term is useless. Maybe it's oversimplistic, I suppose. But I'm like, I think it's nice for like simplifying things. It makes it so you don't have to go into detail unless you want to engage in the conversation with it. So.
Because most writers and people who create creative works, they more or less know what a Mary Sue is when you mention the term. So it's kind of a shorthand. And then you can go ahead and explain what's going on. Why you think their character is a Mary Sue.
Yeah, sure. I I don't necessarily disagree or
Yeah,
agree, but
I agree with Lit saying that, as soon as you hear the word Mary Sue, there's like a list of traits which coach your mind, and then someone does the explanation of why they believe it is this.
And without using other buzzwords. I know it's easier to just use a half-baked term instead of just...
A buzzword is just like a word. I believe it's a word that doesn't really mean anything, but supposed to make people like row.
Yeah, Mary Sue is not a buzzword. Okay, it's a very diverse.
On the things I can kind of understand because I have seen the area, so I guess we've all kind of seen. I don't know how many of you have seen Jeremy from Geeks of.
yeah,
He sometimes I used to be a fan of him, and when I was a fan of him, he didn't go that extreme. But sometimes, and at the times, he was very much the kind of this idea of, if you call everything SJW, then nothing is. But sometimes Jeremy and channels like his have gone a bit over the and sometimes they call something when it isn't. And I suppose that's kind of just the problem is when you have the mentality of it is X, and then you're thinking, okay, this is SJW, then you've got to work backwards to try and reason why it is, and you're always looking for it. And that's kind of the problem with, I guess, feminism in a way as well, because you're saying, well, it is sexist in some way, shape, or form, and then you've got to try and connect all the dots to try and make it out, even though those dots could literally make any kind of fucking picture.
Yeah, and I was about to say, like, my trouble with him is that a lot of the topics that he covers are a little bit too specific to like make a general statement about. Actually, Southpaw got to talk to him on one of our streams. Like, it was about the joke with Robert Pattinson about Jennifer Lopez, I believe, like playing Batman. It's just a joke, but he took it kind of seriously instead of the video that he made. And yeah, he talked to him a little bit about it.
I guess I tried to distance myself, as I used to be a part of Geeks of Gamers as one of their graphic designers. But again, it's just kind of the mentality they have, really. When anyone has when they're going in with a certain ideology full thrust.
There's a super chat from Mr. Joseph Kerwin. Thank you, sir. I recognize his background music. Oh, dear. It's a 30-second repeating clip that was used in an awful acid flip Steam game. Oof.
He's talking about Jim Sterling and when he covered the Slaughtering Grounds, and Slaughtering Grounds was famous because of the whole Jim Sterling fiasco.
Right.
And that was said before, and it just fucking keeps repeating. And, oh my god, it's annoying.
Describing the topic in detail, but here's the thing. You don't have to open your trap if you refuse to explain yourself in serious discussion. To anyone who wants to take writing seriously and improve on their storytelling or...
Oh, so we're not taking it seriously now.
A man who has
we're
an
not
anime
taking
avatar
it seriously.
with a midriff, with a fedora, doesn't explain a goddamn thing, uses references without
Not
a podium.
one thing he was explaining.
I was about to say, man, like, don't criticize people for not going into detail. If this entire video you've just thrown things on your screen without explaining.
Not one thing was explained from him. Don't give me place to lecture us on giving us, telling us to explain things to you.
Oh, Lord Almighty.
Also, I'm kind of getting he's so hostile and salty. It almost comes off as if he himself has written something and he posted it somewhere, and a lot of people said, "Well, your characters are Mary Sue." That's what I'm kind of getting now. All these people call my characters Mary Sue. I'm going to rant about how Mary Sue, the term, is useless.
Yeah, I'm like, have you not heard people make arguments about why a character is going to be a Mary Sue? Because I don't hear people just say Rey is a Mary Sue and that's the end of the story. I hear a lot of reasons for why she is a Mary Sue. And like, I don't know if she hasn't heard, or I mean, if he hasn't heard all those arguments, but yeah, plenty of people will split their points to why a character is Mary.
Okay, so I'm going to have to explain to Shadow of Humanity in the comment. So I wasn't saying that they have an SJW mentality. I said my problem is that they follow a certain ideology where something is something, and then they have to connect the dots to explain why, rather than coming to the conclusion through the actual things that are there. And again, Jeremy from Geeks of Gamers, I'll give him a little bit of leeway because I think just kind of depends. Sometimes he's on and off, at least from what I've seen of him and what I used to again, what I used to see of him, that I kind of started working for them.
Isn't there a YouTube channel called Total Bullshit or something like that, where he just sort of rides this term without understanding the context of the term and just keeps using it? Is that sort of mentality? No?
So, just because now he's asking for an example, let me try and think way back when. I guess maybe
the
like
no bullshit. That's
someone.
That's the one, yeah.
Oh yeah, no bullshit. That's going to be a better example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll step away from Geeks and Gamers because I do still have some respect for Jeremy, and I'll go to no bullshit as everything to that. He is the extreme of extremes when it comes to the anti-SJW stuff.
Right. Like everything to him is like, this is obviously a bunch of SJWs who did this, or this is obviously a bunch of feminists.
This is a suspicious amount of women.
Right. It's over the top. It's like he doesn't understand the term. He doesn't know how it's used in the context of whatever he's addressing. I noticed that very quickly because some of his YouTube videos are like, oh, that makes sense, and then the other one would be completely off the wall. And I'm thinking, dude, what are you attacking? What are you even talking about? Where are you going?
Again, I struggle to find an example with Jeremy himself because I haven't watched anything he's done in like so long since I left Geeks and Gamers, and yes, I don't really follow him anymore, and it's been just so. And I still have respect for him, so I don't want to like kind of shit all over him.
Okay, let's go to a super chat from Lieutenant Colonel Tanya von de Gerschiff. Thank you again for your foreign currency. I don't know what that is. YTF? I would want to discuss anything with him. I'm assuming you're referring to Julz Chan. Well, you know what? I would like to know where he's coming from because I think he's more angry and confused than he is being serious. Because I think he's having a very emotional reaction, and his essay format is not working. He's sort of grasping at straws and seeing something which he thinks is a problem he could fix, and then trying to fix it without making sense. And he sort of lost his argument where it's like Mary Sues don't exist, yet they do, but there's elements of them which still work. It's like, yeah, we can see elements of Mary Sues that aren't Mary Sues that do work. And then he's talking about other things like setting or giving them proper challenges. Like, yes, exactly right. But that's not what Mary Sues are up against. That's why they are Mary Sues. So sadly, I don't think we're going to ever get him on the screen or on Twitter or wherever he is, but that's how it goes. I mean, we're lucky to get John that one time talking about just random stuff about Star Wars, really, and that was good. I enjoyed that. Anyway, we have 2 minutes left. We can do it.
Critiquing skills, fear of characters who are supposedly too perfect is an unnecessary limitation and a detriment to one's creativity. Your character will get called a Mary Sue by virtue of being overpowered, competent, being a special race, having a weird aesthetic, or just because of a story problem that acts independently of that character, and then blame the character. It's best to just ignore the buzzword entirely, or force the person to actually explain what they mean. The people who focus on things like power levels too much are the kind of people who think the only way to build tension is by hitting things, and that's kind of the limitation of their critiquing skills.
No. I don't even know what that means. Hitting things? Am I bashing a target? Is that what he means? It's called critiquing things, which we do when we look at the lore and the character. We match them up. We go, oh, this doesn't get explained. That's it. There's no explanation. There's no reference. One possible.
Maybe he's implying that we're like toxic, or that we're like yelling, or like just being mean. Yeah. I don't know.
It's just best to just forget the buzzword exists, because because of all the points I've listed in this video, which were not really points, just me throwing things at the wall and hoping they stick.
Yeah. And I get his sentiment where, don't make that stop you from writing. And I agree with that. Just, whatever's holding you back, just go write. But when someone says, hey, this is a problem, they have to explain why, which is what editors do. So
that's what critics usually are supposed to do, just explain why this is bad. Okay, exactly. This is what editors tend to do. Like, okay, this is bad. This paragraph is bad. Okay, why is it bad? Here's the reason.
Yeah, exactly. So his argument is kind of like, have you ever written a story? I mean, has anyone gotten back to you and never told you why it was bad to them? I don't think so.
I think he
Yeah,
has
like-
written a story. I'm getting the hint that he kind of has written a story, posted it somewhere, and then a lot of people said that his character was a Mary Sue because he's
Yeah.
inexperienced or level.
Every workshop I've gone to, every class I've gone to, and creative writing at least, they have lots of reasons why they don't like something, like a word. Like you use the wrong word, for example, let alone a sentence or a paragraph or a character or a scene or a chapter or whatever. So they have plenty of good reasons or explanations, maybe not excellent reasons, but they're theirs to explain why. And unless this dude is literally writing fanfic, which I'm guessing he does, he has all these pictures of angels in armor or whatever.
Kind of get the hinting that he probably does.
Yeah.
That's why he posted it somewhere, and a lot of people came back to him with your character's a Mary Sue.
Probably. And that's
Kind of getting that hint.
Yeah. So I don't know. I get that feeling too, but I don't know what's going on with him and why he's so angry. So
I don't know why there's a
Really
minute
don't
left in this
think
video.
all right, let's keep going.
If we kept worrying about Mary Sues, we wouldn't be writing about super special orphans going off to magic school, teenagers becoming superheroes, superpowered icons, fairy godparents, and rebels battling space Nazis. And always remember, another person's Mary Sue is gonna be another person's favorite character. So fuck off. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna
Wow.
go
See,
read
the-
Jason
the
Aaron's
attitude
run
of
on
arrogance.
Thor.
Fuck
Here's
off.
the
Attitude of arrogance.
female Thor, Jane Foster as Thor, because by the gods, these stories are awesome. And
Of course.
I just want to point out that Thor is his fucking name, not his title.
Thor is his name.
That's fucking stupid.
I have to say, everyone has a problem with it because Jane Foster hasn't been a character in the MCU over the last. I don't know if she's referring to it's going to be inside of those movies, but the trouble, at least in the MCU, is that Jane Foster hasn't been in the movies. They just wrote her out, so her coming back is like, what the hell?
He's coming back out of
Well,
nowhere.
even then-
becoming Thor.
I like how
Even then, it just makes no fucking sense to me. You can make Jane Foster a superhero. You can probably tell a really good story about it if you had a good enough writer, and and if the wind was in the right direction. But to make her just to replace Thor with just a woman like this stealing his name and fucking everything.
I like how he
Yeah,
characterized J.K. Rowling and Tolkien and all these other writers as if they didn't think about Mary Sue's, we wouldn't get a wizard going to wizard school. It's like, what, dude? Good writers don't think that
No
way in
sense.
the first place.
Makes no sense at all.
They know what not to do.
And I'm really getting more of a hint that he's written Mary Sue characters because he
Yeah.
likes Rey and Captain Marvel and Lady Thor, that Marvel version of Lady Thor, and all
No
that
one
stuff. So
bought.
I'm pretty sure that I want to write a character like these characters, and all those characters are Mary Sue's. So yeah, if he writes fan fiction, posted it somewhere, I'm pretty sure he got people calling him Mary Sue, and thus he made this video.
Wow.
Something along those lines.
Okay.
Jane herself is an awesome character. She truly knows what it means to be worthy.
That's the version of Lady Thor that cries about feminism all the time on every one of her books and stuff.
Like, wasn't she? I just know the meme of her fighting, like, literally misogyny. Like, literally,
Yeah,
it's
that's
almost like,
basically her.
a woman can't be Thor.
She's punching
was
someone, a bad guy, in the face and then while saying this is for saying that using the word feminist like a 4-letter word or something like that. It's all about feminism and social justice and stuff. So
I
not
know
a very good.
The first edition sold well. After that, nothing.
That's the pattern with Marvel Comics. They keep pumping out first like number ones so that people will buy them, and then no one will buy the number two. So that's why they have so many number ones coming out, and they fail immediately because no one wants
They
to be
made their million. That's done.
I was
Yeah.
about to
I
say,
mean, that's why so many comic book shops are closing down.
So, are we gonna watch this trailer then?
Yeah, I think
We
it's
can all
just-
enjoy
Yes.
Transformers.
Yeah, it's all credits. Let's do it.
Finally,
Cybertron is in ruins. I fear war is lost. Optimus.
I'm mixed on the animation.
Yeah, the animations looked a little cheap, but then it is Netflix, so I can give them a little leeway. But I'm looking more towards the fact that it's the original and the story they're trying to tell than the animation.
Conflict to the point where we must answer their aggression with force. I empower you Decepticons, to bring this painful chapter of our history to a close. We are facing extinction at the hands of the Decepticons. Cybertron needs strength. My strength. Cybertron needs freedom. We must not allow Megatron to find the Allspark. With it, he will destroy everything we are.
You're fighting to win, and that's gonna get you all killed.
The Autobots fight for the day we no longer have to fight.
This was not the life I imagined for us.
It's a life worth fighting for.
You know what? I think I'd rather watch Beast Wars.
What?
Yeah, Beast Wars was awesome. I like Beast Wars.
Yeah.
I never watched like Beast Wars.
Beast Wars and then Beast Machines.
The only ones I've seen are I've seen parts of the G1. I've seen I watched Cybertron as a kid, like Transformers Cybertron, and then there was Transformers Prime, which I also watched, and the Transformers War for Cybertron games.
Well, it's not a bad take, but it doesn't impress me visually. It looks about 10 years old.
I'm more excited for the story, and I kind of like the fact they're returning to the older G1s. Like, there's so many stories you could possibly tell on Cybertron, and the fact they're going back to the G1 style kind of says they're not trying to go for the Michael Bay Transformers, which I became really fucking sick of.
I don't think I've ever experienced properly a Michael Bay Transformer movie to say what it was about. What it was about.
They're all crap.
They all
People
are.
say the first one's good. Like, no, it isn't.
I tried watching the first
I'll
one.
fight you on that.
That's a chick who can't act. Like, okay, I see why they got her in here. Okay, makes sense. But other than that, no, it didn't really hook me in.
The fourth one is especially terrible, and I swear I gave it a chance, and I actually saw it in theaters because like they're rebooting it. Mark Wahlberg's coming in, maybe it'll be good, and no, is one of the worst, if not the worst.
Okay, well, guys, I think we've used up enough of everyone's time here. We've been going for about, I'm trying to look at the time. What has it been? 2 hours? 2.5? Yeah, that's it.
Pretty quick work, relatively speaking. Made it through pretty quick.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that bad. Again, when you cut this up into 2 parts, I guess it makes life easier on everyone else. But man, no
Yeah, it's certainly easier on my life.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for. I know we're in other parts of the world than Shiney, so thanks for sticking in with us. And if you have any other recommendations, do share them with me in the comments below, Facebook, on Twitter, or join me on Discord and talk to me there. I'm happy to talk to you. And thanks for listening, guys. Have yourself a great day.